Pablo, light it up.
I had to buy the Porsche now, yeah. Trap, 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 trap. I had to buy the Porsche now, yeah. Trap, 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 trap. Got it out the mud, all they ever wanted was a plug. All my niggas thugs, money coming, gotta get it up.
What's up, sports fans? It's your man D back, Speak Your Mind Sports Talk. All right, check it out, man. We talking boxing versus UFC. Did the COVID-19 restrictions on sports kind of give the UFC a boost to catch boxing, to, capture some of the fan base, to close the gap? Because let's be honest about it. The sport of boxing is still ahead of the UFC, but the UFC has been catching ground. And this COVID-19 restriction, giving the UFC time to get 3 events in before boxing, did they catch ground? For the love of sports, let's talk about it. Also, guys, we're going to talk about, we had a good discussion going on over on Mr. Two Hands channel, and I'm outside of the camera. Let me move over. And I don't know what happened, but we're going to continue that discussion, and then we're going to move into the boxing versus the UFC discussion. But I want to continue the discussion we were having over there on Mr. Two Hands channel, because they can't keep us down, bro. We got too many channels. We're going to get this out no matter what. You know what I'm saying? Two Hands.
Ain't no stopping us now.
Ain't no stopping us, dog. Well, that's what's up. So, welcome, everybody. Let me get some shout-outs to everybody in the house. We got Think Cap in the building. What's good with you, Think Cap? First up, Ralph. What's up, Ralph? Sporting Advantage. Samuel Shaw, Iceman. Queen Lisa Bell's in the building. Mr. Spooks, what's going on with you? So, guys, all 3 of us were over there. We'll probably get a couple more people on the panel. I usually restrict this to 4, but I'm going to open up a full panel today. So let's just go ahead and pick up where we left off. Mr. Two Hands, you crank it up. I have a different topic up, so just fill everybody in on what we were discussing and like what angle we were going. I'm gonna let you take the floor, bro.
All right, so basically, the topic was just based around, just pretty much boxing is in basically a state of emergency. State of emergency of boxing. Fights we want, we ain't getting, and the fights that we getting, we don't really want. So what way and what dynamic how can we change all of this? Like, what's going on? We're not getting anything that we want. So it just boggles my mind. How do we go about it? Should we just be dismissive of what's going on and just start rooting in other directions, or just I just don't know, man.
All right. Well, when you look at it, like a lot of these issues in sports, it's sort of like the issues we facing in the country, bro. Like, people got to band together. You got to hit people in the pockets, bro. You stop these subscriptions, but you have to have a voice. Channels like ours about why people are doing this. If you have a voice and people stop buying these fights, stop buying these subscriptions, stop supporting, and then they hear why we're not doing it, because they're not making these fights, then things change. What's the probability of getting people to unite like that? Because you have people already divided in boxing so much. You have all of these idiots and casuals out here spreading these narratives to promote agendas, and then you have true boxing fans that love the sport of boxing. You have these racists out here. You have all kind of idiots. So the unification on what needs to be done with the sports fan, because we're going to determine in the end what happens. If we boycotted fucking boxing, like, boycotts really work. When you don't spend the money, then they change up. They change their tone. But it's as long as you continue to spend the money, and I'm not saying you, but I mean just you in general. As long as you continue to spend the money and they still have that avenue to get revenue in, they're gonna keep doing what they're doing, bro. You gotta hit their pockets, and you have to let them know why you're hitting their pockets. You can't just boycott. They don't know why it's happening. They're just gonna work on marketing ideas to get the sport to other people and keep moving. You have to know why. You have to let them know why they're being boycotted. You have to let them know why people are leaving the sport, not paying attention to the sport. This is what happened back in the day with the WBC and the WBA, and then the IBF come along and pretty much revived the sport of boxing. Everybody was like, okay, well, fuck those two sanctioning bodies. They were on all of that bullshit. Let's go watch this one. And then the WBC and the WBA, although temporarily, revamped everything. And then they tried to get on the straight and narrow. But it was the fanship that forced them to get on the straight and narrow. It was they got tired of it. No one wanted to watch boxing. It was a done deal. So another sanctioning body stepped in and said, we're going to fix everything. People got back interested in boxing. WBC, WBA came back around. They got their act together for a little while anyway, so that they could get their grips back in. And so we're back here in 2021 with a lot of foolishness in boxing. But if we make that same statement again collectively, then they change. Other than that, we're going to just have a lot of discussions about why we're not getting what we want to get.
That's why, D. Jeff, one of my main answers and something that I really got, you know what I'm saying, one of my mans who really, really, really know all the ins and outs of the computer shit. Like, I literally called him this morning. He's looking into it right now on how to do it. Anonymity. You know what I mean? I'm thinking anonymity. I'm thinking if there's a place where people can be anonymous, figureheads, promoters, boxers, etc., to where, you know, there's only one to two things that make people act. It's exposure. it's exposure. And exposure through anonymity, or it's exposure through the other way, which is basically saying that you're not going to go to fights. You're pretty much going to do on a standstill, on some kind of like some striking, kind of like not necessarily protesting, but just being on a standstill, not doing it. So so I'm thinking to be effective and everything still moving forward, if professionals have some form of anonymity, like a 4chan or a WikiLeaks, to where they can just lay it all out, like, boom, this is why this isn't happening. Boom, this is why this isn't happening. And they have no choice, but they can't do anything, but their head's going to have to spin on trying to figure out who's doing it. But have no way, they don't have no choice but to clean that act up. Because just like, you know, with 4chan and WikiLeaks, when it comes to governments, as soon as that shit hits Julian Assange's sites, they start changing their tune real quick, trying to reform ASAP. So I'm thinking if we can have some form of anonymity in boxing, it will help, because the corruption is never going to change. But we as a people can figure out a way to curb it. So, you know, like somebody said to me early, one spark gets everything lit. So why not us be the spark and get that thing going? So I'm really, really going through it, trying to get this boxing 4chan, this boxing WikiLeaks thing going. If anybody's really proficient with computers and knows the way I can go about getting that forum up, man, DM me ASAP, because I'm really trying to go through with this shit.
Yeah, that's a fact. I'm all in. You know, I got your back on that. Let me give some shout outs to the chat. Carlos Mendoza stepped in the building. Also, Carlos stepped in the building. Mr. Spooks up here. What's up, Mr. Spooks? Boxing Finesse in the building. What's good with your boxing finesse? Salute to you, fam. I know I see my man Pablo. There you go. Pablo. What's up, Pablo? Premier Fighting Champions in the building. What's good with you, fam? Appreciate you coming through. Make sure I ain't miss anybody. South Croy, I see you over there, South Croy. And T-Tone Toledo. T-Tone Toledo been here with me since day one, guys. Me, T-Tone, Boxing Monster, unbiased. First live, us three kicking it for an hour. Just us three. Nah, it was about an hour and 40 minutes. Nobody else. T-Tone, my man. So anyway, yeah, bro, I feel you. You know, it just... You know, this kind of segues into the show's conversation today anyway. So I want to keep talking about this because it literally segues into what my discussion was, which is just coincidental, bro, because you were live and I had like an hour and something to kill. So I came on your live. And like I said, coincidentally, it actually has something to do with what I was going to talk about today. So I want to continue to talk about this, and then we'll go over into that. Okay. And it kind of gives merit to my topic, actually. It gives a lot of merit to my topic. So great. That's a great move. But Jay, what's up, Jay?
What's up, man? You
First
mind?
time on the panel, bro. Welcome to Speed Your Mind Sports Talk, my man. Subscribe if you don't mind.
Oh, I already have, man. Already have, bro. Yeah, thank you for having me on, man. Corruption. I mean, this shit's never gonna go away in boxing. The rule. How old is boxing?
Over 100 years old, bro.
1800. It's at the end of the
18.
1800s.
Oh, into the 1800s. That's pretty
Yeah, it
old.
was like 1897 or something like that.
Do you know when the
1883, if I'm not mistaken? I don't mean to try to correct you, but I think
no, I'm just throwing out a number. I'm not even saying I'm
y'all
right.
ready?
I think it's 1897. I'm not 100%.
That's pretty far back. Do you know when the Marquess of Queensberry rules were agreed upon and written out and signed?
42, right? 1942, is that right?
1736.
Is that right?
Dude. 1736. They might not have been the full-on Marquess of Queensberry rules with like they had amendments along the way, like the neutral corner rule and the standing 8 count. That was all like in the 20s and 30s. But the original bare knuckle boxing rules, the
okay.
they were fucked. They maybe not the Marquess of Queensberry rules, but
those guys used to stand there with their hands like this. Come on.
yeah, the Snidely Whiplash, Twisty Mustache type people. But shit has been crooked for a long time. Like in the 20s and 30s, I can't remember exactly which fight, but I think it was in the Jack Johnson era. Tex Rickard, like the Don King promoter back in the day, he refereed the championship fight. That'd be like Don King being the referee in a fucking Tyson fight. Like, like you're in everybody's pockets. This is not even a legit operation. Like, what the fuck is going on? Shit like that is kind of masked now, but that mob element is still there, man. WBC, James Toney will straight up tell you stand for We Be Crooks. I mean, the shit is, man. Mauricio Sulaiman is like a Don. Bob Arum refuses to die. Goddamn. Like, dude, he's 112 and just hanging on. I'm surprised they squeezed Don King out. He don't really own that much anymore.
Bro, that's how it is. That's how it is with these business tycoons. Like I do I was before I got sick doing commercial painting, right? So I was doing this job for a guy, a billionaire. I won't even say his name because I ain't gonna put it out. Well, he's a billionaire here in Columbus. I was doing the job for him. And he's old. He's really old. And I would talk to him. He would come talk to me every day. And I would listen to this motherfucker because, look, he's worth $1 billion. So when he talked, I was listening. And he told me, he said that the reason he keeps working, he keeps going because he feels like if he stops, he'll just wither away and die. He said he feels like that's what's keeping him alive. Every morning he got something to look forward to.
Right.
It's what business do I have to do next? And he's as old as Bob Arum. And he told me that he owns right now over 2.2 million square feet in real estate. You know what I mean? Like the dude has googles of money. You know what I mean? His house was freaking beautiful. So that's the thing. I think that's the same thing with Bob Arum because, bro, I mean, people got to be honest. The dude shows signs of dementia or Alzheimer's, whichever one you want to pick. He's always fucking contradicting himself and forgetting things that he's done said in another interview. Like he's showing signs of this, but he won't stop. You know, as long as those faculties are still there at some form, he ain't going to stop and nobody's going to make him because, again, if he's anything like the guy that I'm talking about here, really nice guy, Herbert. I can say his first name because it's a lot of Herberts around, but his first name is Herbert. He's a billionaire. If he's anything like Herbert, bro, he's not going to stop because that's what's keeping him alive. He looks forward to getting up every day and going to work.
Okay, so the Marquess of Queensberry rules were drafted in London in 1865, but they were published in 1867. They were named so as John Douglas, the 9th Marquis of Queensberry, published and endorsed the code. However, they were written by a Welsh sportsman named John Graham Chambers. So 1865 when they were written, published in 1867.
There you go. There you go. So that's a long time, bro. 1867. So they had the rules and everything. And just like Jay said, although they were probably amended and such, they had the rules established since 1867. This sport is over 130 years old, bro. Over 130 years old. It's a lot of lineage in this sport. And the corruption at whatever level has been existing in this sport since the dawn of it, and it's not gone anywhere. And with more hands in the cookie jar just leads to more corruption. You look at back in the day, they didn't have as many sanctioning bodies, they didn't even have as many weight classes, promoters, managers, and so forth. Nowadays, you got 4 sanctioning bodies, all of these motherfuckers with multiple belts, side sanctioning bodies trying to get in, IBO, NAF, all of these sanctioning bodies, and you got promoters and managers everywhere with their networks and such. Plus, it's so many avenues to have corruption involved in the sport of boxing. This is why when people talk about the WWE and the UFC, the dynamics of those two sports are so different from boxing. You can't really compare. Because Vince McMahon and Dana White have total autonomy. That's it. There is nobody else, bro. All of this show that these guys get up here and the president of this and the manager of this and these guys get up there on the mic, they don't really have no fucking power. Vince McMahon got all the fucking power. Vince McMahon has all the power. Dana White has all the power. You don't do what they say, you don't fucking eat. Now, when you have that kind of control, then you can eliminate a lot of the things that happens in boxing. But you ain't gonna gain that kind of control in boxing because it's goddamn 100 hands in the cookie jar. And UFC and the MMA, there's only like 5 hands in the cookie jar. Shit, with the WWE with Vince McMahon, there's only 1 hand in the cookie jar. Vince's, goddamn it. he's got the whole show. Dana White still has the Disney and the those 2 Italian brothers he has to deal with. Yeah, right. Brothers he has to deal with. But just those guys. He don't have all of these sanctioning bodies. He has total autonomy. All he has to do is answer to them. Vince don't have to answer to nobody. So the dynamics of those sports and the way those sports operate, although people would like to compare, it's totally uncomparable. You can only really compare the WWE and the UFC. Now, you can make comparison with those two, but you can't really compare them to the sport of boxing and how their business model works and what they're able to get done. And here's another huge thing about WWE and UFC versus the sport of boxing. Boxers require way too much money. You got to pay these boxers. Both UFC and WWE, a lot of those motherfuckers are starving. The stars get money, the Brock Lesnar's and the Rouseys, but you know how many wrestlers it is that come in just for a fill-in match? They ain't making no money. The UFC fighters making $2,000 for a freaking fight, a real fight.
Let me tell you how smart Dana White and the Fertitta brothers are, and it's sinister at the same time. Okay, so the UFC fighters, and I know UFC in and out. That's my shit. Like, I could talk UFC just like I talk boxing. Really? Now, Dana White, right? All of the UFC fighters had independent promotion. You could get promotion from anywhere. Say if you wanted to go get promotion from John's Car Wash, if they were going to promote you, shit, you can get promotion from them. So that way, if they had, when they were wearing their own T-shirts, say one would go get sponsored by Tap Out, another guy would go get sponsored by Yamaha and all of this stuff. You know what I mean? They would go pick up their own sponsorship. So these guys, even the lower class guys, they were making money based off of those. They were making big money just off of those being promoted by these outside entities. Now, this is what Dana White does. He partners up with Reebok.
Cuts all that shit out.
Now, hold on. This is where it gets spooky.
Cuts all that shit out.
So he partners up with Reebok on promotion with UFC. So now they put the pay scale. So it's a sliding scale. if you win 3 matches, if you win, I think it's 5 to 7 matches. After you get past 5 or 7 matches, your pay increases. You go from like $1,000 or $2,000 to like $5,000. It's a 3-step pay scale. You go from like $1,000 to $5,000 up to the highest, which is 20 grand. So you basically took probably $500,000 to even some of the bigger fighters like Anderson Silva, who was sponsored by Nike, so many other, had so much other sponsorship. You completely blackball these guys to pretty much take hundreds of thousands, 6 to 7 figures of promotional dollars out of their pocket to slap Reebok on every single one of them to screw this guy from going from getting 100,000 to like 2 grand. Dude, that's some hardcore pimping shit right there.
Anderson Silva had Burger King on his shorts, cuz.
Yeah,
Burger King.
Yeah, I mean, look at Paige Van Zandt, the little model chick that fight. She got the Reebok contract. She got the Gatorade contract. She do modeling. She said she make more money off of her endorsements and modeling than the UFC can even pay her.
That's a fact. I suggest everybody, if you haven't watched it, just go to YouTube and pull up UFC, pull up corruption in UFC, and it'll bring up all of the fighters. It'll bring up all the fight from the promotion, the thing with Reebok. It'll bring up, you know, the stuff with all of the crooked stuff with the juicing, to even all the testosterone. It was something that, you know, they did where it's like a testosterone boost. Like I'm forgetting the word that comes after it, where they say you can basically go get a testosterone boost if your testosterone levels are low. PRT. So they let Vitor Belfort go PRT. Get a testosterone boost from the doctor, which made he could legally juice, bro. This man came back jacked and was whipping everybody. Before that testosterone boost, it was losing everything. So it is just like, so UFC has its things just like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it goes super deep with the UFC. Like,
yeah. Dana White is he's innovative though. People have to give Dana White respect for that. The dude he's a schmuck and a scum. And look, his own mama called him a schmuck and scum. That's where I got the schmuck and scum from. That's what his mama said. So if his mama said he's a schmuck and he's scum, then he a schmuck and he's scum. But the man is innovative. He makes it happen, bro. And this is not the first time. And people, you think back with the UFC, and with this pandemic, a lot of sports are in turmoil. But this is not the first time Dana White has been in turmoil. He's been in trouble with the UFC a couple of times, and he prevailed. He worked through that, right? He was the first to get it cracking out of all sports in America here. Dana White was. So the man's innovative. And I guarantee you that purchase that he made on those 2 islands, that's going to pay off huge. It's going to pay off huge.
Island.
You know what I mean? So that's innovation. And that's Dana White. And that's why the UFC is as successful as it is. You don't have to like the man, but you have to respect what he's doing with that organization.
Bro, I can't take anything away from him. But I mean, I've been watching everything the Fertitta brothers and Dana White have been doing because, you know, most people only think Dana White runs the UFC. They completely forget about the Fertittas and everything. And the Fertittas don't just run UFC. They run several things outside of boxing as well. But here's just the deal, though. Ever since the Fertittas and Dana White and gotten, you know, and they've been involved in the UFC to get it to the point to where they got it now on streams, deals with ESPN. They brought UFC so far, but I mean, they've completely absolved almost every other mixed martial arts company along the way. You talking about sharks in business? Oh my God, Elite XC, Strike Force, K1,
champion.
Oh my God, dude! The only one that they didn't walk away with was one championship.
Well, one and Bellator, because Bellator signed up with DAZN and they're pretty strong right now. They're actually doing good contracts. But Bellator
is actually doing really well.
Yeah, they're doing really well. Bellator and One are the only ones who pretty much. The UFC came in like Walmart. They came in like Walmart. And all of the little department stores, all of the little other MMA organizations, They went out. That UFC came in just like Walmart and basically wiped a lot of stuff out. Like I said, Bellator won. They hanging in there. Bellator is actually doing pretty good, and they're actually rivaling the UFC in some ways. But outside of that, man, UFC is catching a lot of ground, and Dana White is clearly the reason, bro. So, like I said, people love him or hate him, but the guy is innovative, and he's a smart man when it comes.
Speaking on that, D, Dana White deserves a lot of credit, but see, there are a couple other guys that helped take UFC to get it to where it is right now that don't get no credit, and in their bank account they damn sure ain't getting no credit. Like guys like my man from Canada, damn it, just because I want to say his name off the top of his head right now, George St. Pierre. You got guys like of course Anderson Silva,
Randy Couture.
Right, Randy Couture. You got your Forrest Griffins. You got your Ken Shamrocks. All of these guys. Not to mention the jujitsu family. The Gracie family. Right. These guys have all put in hella work to get the UFC to where it is. And these guys were very popular guys, very popular, underpaid guys, but they took a lot of punishment to see UFC is where it is. It's just like any other business. The guys in the beginning always take the hit so the other guys can reap the benefits of what they went through. But man, it's something when you can honestly sit there and say that we've literally got to watch this company grow from being pushed all the way to the back of every freaking pay-per-view. So, what I'm saying, that them boys only getting to buy late night spots for commercials on, TV, to the point to where they're on the forefront and they're on the minds of every freaking sporting column, every sports broadcasted network across how many countries now? Like seeing it in Melbourne, like seeing the UFC go to Melbourne, go to Japan, do shows in Canada, Mexico, Brazil. Like it's something, you know what I'm saying? You gotta salute that.
Yeah, Samuel Shaw says WMEIMG owns UFC now. What company is that? Because I'll tell you like this, Samuel Shaw. If that company WME ain't umbrellas under Disney, which it very well could be, then they ain't bought nothing.
I ain't me all that shit. I ain't me all of that shit up under Disney.
Yeah, well, if they aren't under Disney, that makes sense. But if they ain't umbrellaed up under Disney, they ain't bought a goddamn thing out, because you ain't snatching nothing up from under Disney unless they giving it to you. Because that damn organization is too big. Ain't no buyouts coming over there, bro. You know what I mean? Do you know the Fertitta brothers and Dana White was pushing with the island and all of that? Disney came in and said, not happening. Shut it down, bro. That's what happened at the UFC 249 original date. That's what happened. So if everybody don't know what happened, the Fertitta brothers and Dana White was working hard to get that shit done. And Dana was right there on the cusp of getting it done. And because of the backlash, Disney execs came in and said, shut it down. Just like that. Yeah. So I don't know about WMEIMG. If they ain't umbrellaed under Disney, they ain't bought a goddamn thing. But if they are, then that's likely a acquisition that maybe happen. I don't know. I don't keep on with the back business of that stuff, because ever since Dana White sold the interest to the Fertitta brothers in the Disney group, I just didn't pay attention. I was impressed with him that he was able to own that organization, but he made a man off of that sale, and he kept his job, which he definitely makes a lot of money doing that. So Dana White, smart dude. But Mr. Two Hands, on that topic you was talking about, and like I said, it segued into this topic. Alistair, welcome to the panel. Here's the thing: boxing versus UFC, and because we were talking about the state of boxing, guys, today's topic is concerning boxing. The UFC catching ground on boxing. Like, we got to keep everything in perspective to start this show. I always like to do that, like to keep, let you guys know when we start the conversation, we have to keep things in perspective. This is not a conversation about has the UFC taken over boxing. No, it has not. No. There's going to be years before that happens, if that happens. This conversation is the potential of that happening. And with the state of boxing right now and the rise of mixed martial arts in general and the UFC as that #1 organization, we're going to discuss the potential down the line of this sport potentially rivaling or taking over that #1 spot of boxing. And it's possible. It's very possible right now. So the reason I will appreciate Mr. Two Hands conversation is because just like he was saying, the state of boxing right now is grim with all of the foolery, the nonsense, the fights that we're not getting that we do want. One thing about the UFC, we get damn fights we want to see, bro. Like at least us UFC fans, and when people start to appreciate that sport and come over to that sport, they're going to get the fights that they want to see. Just like in every sport, individual sport, there are some matchups that you don't get, you know. But like Tony Ferguson and Khabib, you know, this thing was 5 times over, guys. And then the pandemic happens and we still don't get that fight. So this happens.
Poor Tony, man.
We're not going to act like it doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen at the level of boxing. Nowhere close. Nowhere close. With the UFC, you get the fights. You know what? One of the most important things about why? Because you got 2 belts. An interim belt and a championship belt. And that's it. Every weight class. Interim champion, interim champion, interim champion. And that's it. Some weight classes don't even have the interim. It's just a champion belt. So when you can consolidate that issue alone, is helping the UFC rise and rise and rise. Hell, even the WWE, Vince McMahon, remember when he joined with WWC, WWF, remember they joined and they became World Wrestling Entertainment. He even, you know, took on all these belts. Remember? Yeah, all of these belts, all kind of championships. That shit causes confusion. But with the UFC, 2 belts. Interim belt, championship belt. Now, see, in the Tony Ferguson situation, this is where UFC fans can get frustrated because how the fuck is he holding this interim belt so long and he don't have this shot yet? You know what I mean? So you can still get frustrations, but again, it's nowhere at the level of boxing. At least that's my opinion on it right now. So, Alistair, since you just came in, I'll let you jump on that topic. Now, Alistair, I want to tell you like this, bro. Stay in context, dog. Don't veer off. Stay in context. Right now, I want you to speak on how UFC is catching the concerning fan base.
Well, if you look at it right now, man, right now the UFC is really just doing numbers right now. They're still putting on shows. I feel like as of right now, they're probably one of the best right now in the world. And a lot of people are just tuning into them, seeing them right now. And I've always said it, like I've said that UFC could be as big, or if not close to as big as soccer, as can one day. You know what I'm saying? And because they just keep growing, they have the resources, their fighters are getting paid way more now. It's just, I don't know, man, it's just a never ending, road for these guys. And, now they have some of the biggest stars in the world. They produced some of the biggest stars in the world, not just athletes, but stars like Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey through UFC. So it shows that, how far they've come, how far they've gone.
No doubt, no doubt. Mr. Two Hands.
Man, it's a great conversation because to be perfectly honest here, you look at the UFC's practice and you look at everything that was going on in boxing. Now, this is a testament of myself. When boxing was going through that downtime with Mr. Steelhammer, when, all the other weight classes really didn't have any fighters coming through and we weren't getting the fights we wanted to see, and we just had a bunch of bums in pretty much almost every division in freaking boxing. I transitioned to the UFC because I just got tired of the practice, the politics. I got fed up with the Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao situation for 5 years. So, I started watching where fighters were fighting good Great fighters were fighting great fighters. Now the UFC has picked up so much traction when you've had, such an enigmatic figure like a Conor McGregor come through when he fought Floyd, that boosted his freaking profile that much more, made $100 million. Left the sport, came back to the sport, puts on a fight with Khabib, and because in the domino effect of his stardom trickled to Khabib, Khabib didn't have to be the greatest speaker. He just had to be a humble, great fighter. To every end, there's that yang. To where Conor was all wild, loud, and aggressive, Khabib got to be that quiet, humble, religious assassin. Go out there and take him out. Now Khabib demands purses that are $2 million plus. He even got him on a standstill to where he wasn't going to take a fight unless he got paid $2 million or above. Now his scale has slidden upward. And you look at that, so now you've got Khabib, you've got Conor, you've got Amanda Nunes now coming through, the Lady Lion who's demanding 2 weight classes, who sells. You got girls like Ronda Rousey who put on the top 3 biggest event in UFC. You've got guys like Nate Diaz who don't control a belt, who just have their personality, who sells out events, who put out one of the top 3 events in the UFC with Conor McGregor. Believe it or not, what Conor McGregor brings to the table, Nate Diaz brought that as well. So basically what I'm saying is we've got to see all of these stars bloom. And what did we get to see in boxing? We get to watch stars fade. We got to watch them dim because they weren't putting on the type of fights. We got people that are aggravated because what they were saying is the state of boxing was boring. All of the corruption didn't change. And where they made it so much easier to where you could just watch UFC, get the number 1 guy fighting the number 2 guy, get those bloody freaking matches that you want, whether they're, 5 rounds, 3 or whatever. You get all of that. So it kind of changes the perspective because combat sports is combat sports, even though you change the science of it. So it made it easier for people to go over and put eyes on these individuals when we had boxing greats in the past where your eyes might have been focused on them. So it's boxing's fault with all of their corruption, with all of their BS, that they took their foot off of the gas, and this is where the UFC is now. This is why their stars are so relevant in the game. This is why you can watch a UFC event, and now like Justin Gaethje has made himself a star. He's been on a 5-fight tear, knocking dudes out. Then now that he fought freaking Tony Ferg, put him on his butt, broke his orbital bone, now that boosted his stardom. So all I'm saying is, man, you look at what's going on and you look at the pattern of behavior here, and it just shows that the ones who are fighting the fights, the ones who are really giving you the fights that you want to see, and all of their BS, no matter what goes on in the UFC, you might hear slivers of it, but you never hear fighters saying that they don't want to take the fight. You never hear fighters saying 2 weeks into it, if something changes, that they're not going to take the fight. They continue to perform because guess what? The train will leave with or without them when you're dealing with the Dana White practice. Over in freaking boxing, it's just, this is what it is, man. This is what it is.
I got the floor.
D, everything. Did you mute your volume or something, D?
Yeah, bro. I was talking the whole time. I didn't on mute. Hey, real quick, I want Jay to jump in on this, but before you do, Jay, shout out to my man Willie Williams in the building. Willie Williams with the $20 super chat. Willie says, salute D. Jefferson, panel, chat, speaking, boxing. Oh, that's supposed to be POTM, guys. That's Power of the Mind show yesterday. Hey, I missed that live. Great discussion from everyone.
Salute Willie Williams.
Yeah, salute to you, Willie Williams. It was great, bro. That was a great live, bro. We had a really good discussion. But hey, that's why I always say the playback gang. And I tell you something, guys, that to this date, I got one video that did better than, like, it was a video, actually, an Anthony Joshua video that did more numbers than that live. For me, like, when I go over 1,000 views, that's huge for me because I ain't got 1,000 subscribers or 1,200. So if I go over 1,000 views, like, that's massive, right? That discussion that we did yesterday, that thing is at almost 2,600 views. So that
Pablo. I'm sorry, D. Pavlo, you're 100% wrong. Tony Ferguson definitely broke his orbital bone after the fight. It was reported, bro.
He said he had no injury. He didn't broke. No, he did fracture his orbital
He definitely
bone.
fractured his orbital bone, bro.
Yeah, that's a fact. But again, to Willie Williams, thank you. But go ahead, Jay. Get on this. What you think about the UFC and how they, catching ground on boxing? Do you think that they're catching ground on boxing or not? What's your opinion on all that?
Do I think they're catching ground?
Yeah.
Did anybody here watch Canelo versus Kovalev?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to.
So you already know what I'm about to say.
Yeah,
That's my man.
I watched. Anybody watch the Teddy Atlas podcast?
Yeah.
I do every now and then. I mean, I watch a lot of stuff because I do MMA, boxing.
Watch that too.
Yeah.
I am a D'Amato disciple. I'm not just into boxing. I'm not just a scholar of boxing. I got into boxing through Tyson and D'Amato, and so I'm a D'Amato motherfucking disciple with that shit. Good Lord, lost my train of thought.
D'Amato disciple.
No, before that.
Teddy Atlas.
Okay. Canelo versus Kovalev.
There you go.
How long did they fucking? I'm always on a Teddy kind of perspective. That's what I was about to say. How long did they make them wait for that bullshit?
It was like an hour. Like
It
an
said-
hour and 10 minutes. I did a live commentary for the UFC match.
It might have even been longer than that, D.
There were pictures of fucking Canelo with his hands behind his head, gloves on, fully gloved, with his feet crossed, sleeping.
Yeah, Kovalev was laid back on the couch.
Or maybe it's Kovalev, yeah.
Yeah, he was laid back on the couch singing, and Canelo was back there warming up, but Kovalev was laid back on the couch singing and enjoying himself. I mean,
Dude, you speak about the parallels to the UFC, between the UFC and WWE. There are no parallels because they're the same fucking thing at this point. The UFC was raw. It was gritty, man. It used to always have like heavy metal music and like even the Roman music when they had Mike Goldberg and they were introducing the fights, like it'd come up with some weird Roman type music. But I'm saying back in the day, it's not as smooth. Like it's much smoother now. It's much more commercial. It's prettied up. It's all dialed the fuck up. I remember when it wasn't allowed, when it was like a dirty word, you know what I mean? Like you couldn't really. They didn't have big ass shows, man. I remember when they tried to get in New York, and it was like a lockdown on UFC. It was like they'll never be in Madison Square Garden, and now they're there more than boxing is.
it's a fact, bro. That's a fact. And see, so when we look at the aspect of the UFC on the fan base now, so with this COVID-19 pandemic, right, and the fact that Dana White was first out the gate, and let's keep something in mind, guys. The only thing that was smoking when Dana White bought the UFC back was darts. Darts over in the UK. Everybody else was pretty much shut down. So when he bought UFC back, that was his only competition. It was no sports but darts and the UFC. Now, I have no quarrels with darts. I'm not I don't know about it. I don't, I'm not invested. I don't know
I am not against darts.
You know what I mean? I have nothing against it, but I don't know anything about it. I do know that it's a sport and it's big over in the UK. But if that's your only competition, when you got guys that like football or American football or, which these are somewhat impact, hockey impact, boxing impact, when you have guys that like stuff like that, hell, even rodeo impact, they probably you had a good portion of those fans watching Dana White's event because it was the only thing smoking. And what's even more interesting is outside of darts, he has had 3 events before anybody had a chance to catch up. He had the UFC 249. The very next weekend, he had the Francis Ngannou fight And this past weekend, he had UFC Fight Night 176 where Tyron Woodley got his ass whooped. So, listen, man, Dana White is doing it. And this is bringing a lot of viewership. This is bringing a lot of fans over to the sport, over to the UFC. Mr. Two Hands, speak on it.
Yeah, it's definitely bringing a lot of fans over to the UFC because I mean, just look at it, bro. Like people, it's an outcry of people that are upset and they're not getting the fights that they want to see. So if you got to freaking change your direction a little bit from watching hands to watching hands and feet, the dynamic don't change that much, but you still get what you want to see. You're getting to see combat, but you're getting to see it on a top level, not a top level versus a lopsided D- fighter. You're getting to see top opposition versus top opposition. So it makes it that much easier to make that transition because it's honestly not trading one thing for another. You're just trading combat for combat. So at the end of the day, I feel as though, you know, people will make that adjustment easily and they won't, you know, they won't say too much about it, you know, and they'll forget about boxing until boxing starts to make it to where it shouldn't be forgotten. And, you know, and, Pablo, bro, I see you still in the comments saying that, you know, Eddie Bravo said this. If you want to believe a flat earther over ESPN, Fox, if you want to believe it over MMA News, if you want to believe it over Tony Ferguson videoing himself from the hospital about his showing off his broken orbital bone with his pointing at it with his tongue stuck out, go right ahead, brother. But I'm just telling you what the world is saying, and you're trying to tell me what Eddie Bravo is saying. And also, a broken orbital bone, that's your eye, sir. So it's not going to prevent you from throwing your hands and feet. But back to that, yeah, we're not trading anything, D. We're not trading anything. So honestly, I understand and I don't feel no type of way if people do it because like I said in my first argument, I've done it, bro. I've done it. I've traded boxing for UFC because I wasn't getting the joy there. I got tired of being upset with boxing, screaming at my TV, having this angry conversation with my friends, passionate about what I want out of the sport and them not delivering it and them just openly just doing us however. So how I changed that? I just changed the channel. So I understand it.
Yeah.
You gotta lower your standards. Yeah. I get it.
Alistair.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing because like Tyron Woodley, he just fought like the other day. Like yeah, it's because like the UFC, they're so consistent. They're always giving you something. So just the consistency of it is why a lot of people do it. And I feel like boxing lets people down way more than it lets UFC fans down for sure. Because at least with the UFC, something's guaranteed. You know, right now it's Gilbert Burns just beat Tyron Woodley the other night. He's about to fight for the title right away. Ain't no ducking, ain't no cherry picking, ain't no tune-up fight, none of that. It's going straight to the UFC main event with Kamaru Usman. And I feel like it helps the evolution of MMA even further because we're getting these matchups right at their day, not too late. So same thing. And then plus they got the UFC game, right? UFC 1, UFC 2, UFC 3, all on PS4. You know what I mean? Conor McGregor on the cover, Ronda Rousey on the cover, John Jones.
PS3.
Three. Boxing, their last video game, right? Because we already know video games are a big part of culture, sports culture. Their last video game was like in 2011 on PS3. Yeah. They said, screw this. It's hard to make the game. Screw this. We're just going to go to where the money's at. And the money was at UFC. And then it got over like 1 million buys or something. Super successful. So now, like what the guy said about how UFC has changed. It used to be like a gladiator, you know what I mean? A rock, metal, hard rock music. Now it's like, you know, it's pretty much a different sport. Now it's like he said, commercialized. And, you know, they got them wearing the UFC kits. You know, it's like a sport now, you know what I mean? Like technically like the NBA or something or NFL. They see it like that now. So I feel like that helped it genuinely. You know, to see it more like less violent and more like of art, technical stuff like that. And you've seen the evolution. You can see the evolution, but just with that alone, man, I feel like people are getting let down, and that's what MMA is benefiting off of. Like UFC is benefiting off of they're lacking, of boxing's lacking pretty much. Where they fail to recover, UFC steps up. So that's what I think.
Hey, real quick, Pablo, here's the thing with all sports. You have multiple sources, okay? And you know, I like Eddie Bravo. I check out Eddie Bravo too. So he's valid on some things, and I'm not going to discredit him. But you have other sources, bro. You have like Ariel Wani, you have Joe Rogan, you have Chael Sonnen. You know what I mean? You have guys. They're also sources. They're also involved in the sport. They also have podcasts and such. And we haven't heard any of those guys validate this. So I understand why you push it so hard about Eddie Bravo. But again, what about Chael? What about Ariel? What about Joe Rogan? Because all of them, if I'm not mistaken, concerning their podcasts and what they're doing, they're larger than Eddie Bravo in the game. All of them. We haven't heard any of those guys collaborate this. So you can say, okay, but why should I believe you and not Eddie Bravo? But Eddie Bravo, the only one singing this tune, fam. So the question is, why are you believing a guy who's the only one singing this tune?
And it's not even about him believing in me. I'm not asking him to believe in me. I'm asking him to believe in credited world media. So if you're not taking my word for it, my word is segued from credited news outlets around the world. It is not me pulling it out of my back pocket, but I can go on Joe Rogan and show you millions of conversations where Eddie Bravo was talking about the earth is flat. Eddie Bravo was talking about all types of conspiracy theories. I'm just saying Eddie Bravo is his coach, so it's his job to make his fighter look like he is made of steel and make him look superhuman. We're talking about Tony Ferguson here, who was the same guy who continued to train himself and walk around on an ACL tear.
All right. And you know, again, Eddie Bravo's a coach. He's not a media presence. I
love Eddie Bravo.
I like him too, and that's what I was telling Pablo. Like, I like Bravo, but everybody has their thing. Like everybody does their thing. Tony Ferguson's a fighter. Bravo's a coach. Ariel Wani and Joe Rogan and Chael Sonnen, they're analysts, bro. This is what they do. They dig into all situations. Just like you have a lot of coaches and guys on teams in boxing that says certain things, but the business doesn't pretty much collaborate. That could be the same thing with Eddie Bravo right now. You know?
Hello, D. Hello, D. You all right? Stop lying to the fans, man. We know you're a liar, all right? You're a fraud. Bye-bye.
Bruh,
what did he
D,
just say?
the same dude was on my live yesterday going in mark like that, bro.
He just Toby Barlett. Shout out to Toby Barlett. But Toby, he just used your name, dog.
I just let him rock out. He was pretending to be JD Boxing yesterday.
I let them say, like, I don't really kick them off because sometimes this shit is really funny to me. I'm sorry. I'm getting annoyed by y'all in the chat. I'm sorry, but sometimes it's actually hilarious to me. I don't fake when I laugh up here, guys. I find that shit funny. I let them talk. You know what I mean? I find this shit funny. I'm sorry. Maybe it's just a sense of humor. But IBT says something the UFC does really well is making good competitive fights. Whether it's 1 versus 3, 14 versus 15 is always competitive and compelling. You know, Dana White is an exceptional matchmaker. He has a team of guys too. A lot of people don't know. He does have a team of guys that help him put these matches together. But as I said earlier, Dana White's he's a visionary. You know, he's a visionary. He can see things. You know, that's what it takes. You got to be a visionary in business, bro. So Dana White, he puts on very good fights, and that's something that's helping the sport of or the organization, the UFC organization, grow. IBT in the building. What's good with you, fam?
Salute, IBT.
Yo, what's up, guys? How are you doing?
What's going on with you, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. I just tuned in a little late. I didn't get a notification, but I'm catching on to the topic here, and I think this is a good one because I think that boxing does some things better, certainly, but I also think there's some things that UFC does better that people don't really bring up, and we have to consider this is kind of comparing an entire sport to a single organization in a sport. So there's also that to look at. I mean, there's other organizations like Bellator, but obviously UFC is the most prestigious, right?
Right, of course. Yeah, no, good points. Who didn't get in on that? Jay, I didn't hear your thoughts on that last comment, bro.
The fights getting made that you don't want to see, or the fights that you want to see that don't get made. The shit is repetitive and it's recurring throughout history. Holyfield was scheduled to fight Tyson in late 88 or early 89, and then it got pushed to 1990, and then it got pushed to Buster Douglas going to be a warm-up, fucking tune-up, and then he gets knocked off, and just bullshit. And then after that, like, Burt Cooper was supposed to be Mike Tyson, but Tyson got a rib injury. Just a bunch of bullshit that kept delaying. Then it finally happened. Nobody gave a shit. I mean, it's going to keep happening throughout history, so it's like, you can go to UFC and then come back to boxing when they make the fight, but just ride with it because other shit's gonna happen. I mean, the Wilder Fury or the Wilder Joshua situation is just something that you never seen before, like a megalithic build up to a complete just nothing, like a dud.
I would even say that's true though, because Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe were supposed to fight, and that never happened either.
Yeah, but that didn't get built up for like 2 or 3 years. It was immediate, and Riddick Bowe's Eddie Futch said that Lennox was bad for Riddick. Eddie Futch told Riddick to not do that, and he wants to blame it on Rock Newman. Rock Newman told me to throw the belt in the trash, champ. So I threw the belt in the trash, champ. No, fuck you didn't. You didn't want none of that goddamn Lennox Lewis. Like, he has some weird.
Big Daddy.
I love Big Daddy. Let me find out, champ. Assalamu alaikum, champ.
Hey, Pablo, you know that I put the link in the chat, bro, so that everyone can come up and, you know, speak their mind. That's what this is, Speak Your Mind Sports Talk, Pablo. That's why I put the link in the chat. So instead of going back and forth in the chat, Pablo, why don't you come up here and tell us about it? Because I'm going to respond to this last comment, but then I'm not going to go back and forth with the Eddie Bravo situation. But I'll respond to this one, Pablo. So you guys talk like Joe Rogan, Helwani, and those other guys are never wrong. They bias like we all are. Okay, I can show you 20 times that Joe Rogan is wrong and badly. I can give you one right now. And I used to get on Joe Rogan all the time. I say, yo, Joe Rogan need to pump his brakes and slow his roll with all of this damn Ronda Rousey talk. Joe Rogan had Ronda beating Floyd Mayweather. He had Ronda Rousey, the greatest thing that ever touched the UFC.
Dude, so he cried.
I get it. I get what you're saying, but is Eddie Bravo always right? See, here's the thing. It's still 3-1, no matter how you look at it, Pablo. Whatever you just said, everything that you just said about Helwani, Rogan, Chael Sonnen, whoever else, I can agree with that, but you can flip it and you turn it on Eddie Bravo, and it's the same situation. Still, you have analysts who do this, who dig into situations, who do the research about everyone's career, not just Tony Ferguson's, and then you have Eddie Bravo, who's strictly Tony Ferguson. So you got to kind of think about it, Pablo.
Okay, and another thing, as a journalist, it's your job to do what? What's the number one job of a journalist?
Research.
Fact check your sources, and not just once. Do it again and again, so you make sure that you're correct. When you're speaking on a person who has certain symptoms or certain injuries, that information does not go out unless it is confirmed by a doctor as well. That information came from a doctor, handed down to the organization handed it down to the media puts it out. Because you're so much of a Tony Ferguson fanboy is what it's sounding like, and you're so mad that he got beat by a guy like Justin Gaethje, which really shouldn't have happened. If you want to compare Tony Ferguson to Justin Gaethje and how people view Tony Ferguson, you just hella butthurt. And even if you feel as though he didn't get his orbital bone broken, he got his ass whooped like his orbital bone got broke.
Facts. Man, he got exposed. He got exposed that night.
Yeah. Well, anyway, back to the topic. UFC versus boxing, not Eddie Bravo versus the analyst panel of the UFC. Eddie Bravo, like I said, I don't really want to talk about Eddie Bravo because I actually like Eddie Bravo. So
Me too.
you know what I mean? So I ain't really trying to like go at Eddie Bravo. But back to this topic. So
it's going to Eddie Pablo.
Yeah, it's Eddie Pablo. Eddie Pablo, you need to sign up, Eddie. Get some t-shirts and shit. You on the marketing team, bro. But no, man. So here's another aspect, guys. I'm gonna go around the panel. Jay, I see you backstage, but it says does not device not connected. So you might want to try to back out and click the link again. I'll drop the link for you, or anybody else who want to come up and discuss today's topic. Hello, friend in the building. What's up? What's up with you, fam? Appreciate you coming through.
What's goody? Hello, friend. Salute, brother.
So they got a link for you, Jay. You might have to back out and come back in. All right, so guys, here's another aspect of this whole UFC boxing situation that I want you guys to kind of respond on. When you look at Dana White and the UFC, right, and concerning their stars, okay, Dana White right now, as far as finances are concerned, he don't have a whole lot of stars in high demand that he has to pay. I mean, let's run it down right now. Now, he has Conor, and even though Conor's not accomplishing everything, Conor still has that name, so it's going to have to pay Conor. Israel Adesanya is coming up, but he's not as demanding for a paycheck right now. You got Jorge Masvidal, which he's demanding. You actually have a situation going on right now, guys, in the UFC where John Bones Jones, right over top of me there, may be turning in his light heavyweight belt and calling it quits because of money. Because he is not, see, a lot of fans, and I'm hearing this already, oh, John Jones don't want that Francis Ngannou smoke. Well, let's stop all the falsities and falseness right there. I'm going to kill that narrative right now.
That's a joke.
That's a bullshit joke. John Jones don't dump no smoke. He said it. Listen, let me tell you how ignorant this sounds. And people are saying this because Ngannou's huge. He has power. He's so much bigger than John Jones. How could John Jones? You idiots. Hold up. Let me put this, because this goes out to all of you people talking this, John Jones ducking Francis Ngannou. That goes out to all of you. You idiots. John Jones was calling out Big Brock Lesnar when Brock Lesnar was knocking motherfuckers out. And if I ain't mistaken, Brock Lesnar is bigger than Ngannou, bro. He was as dangerous as Ngannou when John Jones wanted that smoke from him. You understand? What John Jones is demanding from the UFC is $30 million. John Jones is perfect. He's never been beaten in that ring. He lost to disqualification from hitting Man Humble at the wrong time, but he's never got beaten in that ring. The UFC says you're a fuck up. You can't keep your nose clean outside of the ring. Fuck you. We're not giving you $30 million. And this is what's going on with John Jones in the UFC. So with all of that being said, listen to what I just said, guys. $30 million. This is the argument. Whether you like John Jones or not, guess what? A lot of people do, and a lot of people will pay to see him fight. And Dana White and the UFC is willing to let him walk. See,
John Jones helped build the goddamn UFC.
Right. See, that's the type. But they're ready to let them go, right? And this is the thing. The UFC does not incur the expenses nowhere close to boxing, which gives them even more of an opportunity to close that gap. Alistair, I'm gonna let you start off with it. What you think about that?
Yeah, man. Like it seems like, I mean, you sometimes you can't put it on, the company. You got to put it on the fighter, because John Jones definitely messed up, bro. But I was starting to realize this, and this was like years after the fact. It was before, like around UFC 182. before John Jones fought DC the first time, I'm starting to realize that they were pushing DC as if he was they wanted DC to beat John Jones. You know what I mean? After everything that the man has done for years, he's considered the greatest of all time. DC just had like 2 fights in the UFC, and they were already promoting it as if he was his equal. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't believe. I felt like that was kind of disrespectful, years later. But yeah. So John Jones right now, that's the thing with the UFC. He's not getting paid money that he really wants and stuff like that. I felt like he tried to call out Brock Lesnar those years ago, and what happened? Brock Lesnar retired. But I feel like he was going to make a lot of money, so that's the reason why I feel like he called out Brock Lesnar. My thing is, why would he want to go and fight Ngannou right now, though? You know what I'm saying? That guy's a scary guy. Why would he want to fight him for like chump change? He's not even going to get paid that much for that fight, man. Like probably $1 million max. Probably $1 million max. You know what I mean? But outside of that, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, he's the light heavyweight champion, and you're saying he's ducking when he's considered the GOAT. If he's considered the GOAT, you got to put respect at all times, bro. This is the Jordan of MMA, guys. The Michael Jordan of MMA.
I mean, who's the A side in that fight? It would clearly be John Jones. It wouldn't be no damn Francis Ngannou. So
that's the thing. It's the hype. It's the hype, though. Yeah. They're just hyping him up,
bro. It's crazy because John Jones, Daniel Cormier. Let's get this straight, bro. Let's get this straight. Daniel Cormier was one of the best fighters the UFC has ever seen. Period.
Facts.
Daniel Cormier. He could not crack this John Jones puzzle. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Daniel Cormier, not the old Daniel Cormier, but Daniel Cormier, when he was out there brutalizing everyone, Francis Ngannou would not stand a chance against him. Daniel Cormier was too smart. His wrestling was too good. He would definitely take Francis Ngannou down because I don't care how big Francis Ngannou is. Go look at when Daniel Cormier suplex, and I'm talking about an in-the-air suplex, big country. So I ain't trying to hear nothing about Daniel Ngannou's size. Daniel Cormier would have beaten Ngannou. So why is it that people think John Jones would duck? Daniel Cormier couldn't crack that puzzle. This last fight, they tried to blame it on the PED situation maybe again, and then the report came back. Nope, no way, he didn't have it. He just beat you, bro. He just beat you.
And there's a reason for it too, because he was too big, he was too long. John Jones definitely had that advantage, and it was the way he beat him, guys. It wasn't no PEDs to break DC down, and the fact that he couldn't even take John Jones down in both fights tells you a lot.
You guys understand, like you guys know in boxing, like, okay, so I'll kind of explain something to you guys that's in the chat that don't understand UFC. So you guys know in boxing, when you have this fighter and he has a punch that's enough to keep you at bay, like, wow, oh shit, I gotta watch out for that. I cannot take that punch because that punch could possibly cause me trouble, maybe cause me to lose the fight, right? That's a deterrent. And if a fighter has that, doesn't matter what fighter he's going against, he has that in his favor. Well, John Jones has this straight oblique kick. And what that does, and he throws it better than anybody, and he's accurate with the fucker. What that oblique kick does is he hits the top of your kneecap, and if he catches you right, he'll hyperextend your knee, bro. And he's so efficient with that. These guys in there that are used to coming in with all that damn, they gotta watch out for that oblique kick. Because if he extends their knee, what happens? That big boxing motherfucker, it's over with. That's only one way he's so dangerous. That's just one way.
This fucking conversation is a goddamn joke, man. For the fact that people are even talking about Francis Ngannou in the same breath with John Jones is absolutely despicable. How many times has Francis Ngannou lost? He's lost 3 times. He lost the second fight to Cissé Zumana. He's lost to the Black Beast, and he lost to Stipe Miocic. How did he lose all of them fights? Getting grounded, getting pounded. Period. John Jones is going to go in there, take him to the ground, submit him in the first damn round. It is over with. That dude is a fish out of water as soon as you get him out his back. Freaking Stipe rode him, beat him. That was that. The fact of the matter is, if you're getting dominated by the Black Beast, if you're getting dominated by Stipe Miocic, what do you think the best fighter, the best physical specimen outside of, you know, Anderson Silva to ever grace, you know what I'm saying, to ever grace the, you know, octagon, what do you think he's going to do to you? Like you said, DT3, if Daniel Cormier, who was arguably the second best fighter behind John Jones in their class of all-time conversation, what do you think Francis Ngannou's going to be the one to do it? Shoot, DC is he's a visionary. He saw how he was going to get his own ass kicked. He told John Jones that he wasn't going to kick him in the head with that left leg, and that's exactly what he did.
He's a legend. Daniel Cormier is a legend, bro. And like I said, Daniel Cormier just wasn't like because he cried too much about John Jones. That was Daniel Cormier's, that was his problem. If he didn't cry so much about John Jones, and went on about his business and kept accomplishing, Daniel Cormier would have been more liked by the fans. But forget about being liked by the fans. The things he did in that octagon against the competition that he did it against, he was just like John Jones. He would go in there and beat guys up that people were always like, oh, Daniel going to get it this time. And he would just wipe them out. How many people said Rumble Johnson was going to get Daniel Cormier? So many people said Rumble Johnson was going to get Daniel Cormier. He went there and put him away.
That bad gas thing about all the first round.
Yeah.
Twice.
Dude, the way he ragdolled Hendo was despicable.
Oh.
How dare you, Daniel? Why? Stop. Don't do that to Dan.
Bruh, you want to know what's even worse than that, though? What about how freaking John Jones choked out freaking Lyoto Machida on his damn feet and just let him drop, and that nigga whole body went limp.
Yeah.
That was a great fight, man.
Well, let me tell you something about John Jones and his fortitude, his mental fortitude, and his heart. You know, when people think that Francis Ngannou is just gonna go in there and hurt John Jones, and not, John Jones ain't no fucking quitter. Okay, and let me explain to you guys. He fought Vitor Belfort, John Jones.
Ooh, go ahead.
Vitor Belfort had his arm hyperextended. Guys, Vitor Belfort had the armbar locked in. John Jones was standing up. Vitor Belfort had the armbar locked in. You could see John Jones' elbow. When you hyperextend your elbow, it's supposed to bend this way. When it bends the opposite way, when this shit starts coming up, that's hyperextended. You could see John Jones' elbow like this, about that high off. And he pulled out of that shit and beat the hell out of Vitor Belfort. People tap out from those things, you know.
And DT3, sprinkle the emphasis on the fact that he fought juiced up.
I was about to say
exemption Vitor Belfort, not the regular normalized Vitor Belfort. He fought juiced up, jacked up, Bane beat Vitor Belfort.
Dominated.
I was about to say, dude, he fought TRT Vitor. He didn't fight human Vitor. Like, he fought the Hulk, bro. And he
pre-USADA Vitor.
You look at a guy like ruthless Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler is the definition of a fighter with heart. This guy has been so beat up, so fucked up, and still in there swinging blows.
The Melvin Manhoef fight.
What boxing? Remember the old school era of boxing when guys they had all that grit grind? That's what the boxing fans miss. That's alive in the UFC. These guys got that dog in them, bro.
D, you gotta tell the casuals they don't know about the UFC, bro. Since you're speaking on freaking ruthless Robbie Lawler, y'all need, if you haven't seen it, you must watch Rory McDonald versus Robbie Lawler.
Jesus Christ!
Wow,
the second fight. Yeah.
I'll tell you another good one. Robbie Lawler's had a lot of bangers, but another good one was Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit.
That was big too.
He had both those fights within a year's time.
That's right.
He took a lot off of his career too. Like, it definitely took him.
Like in 2.5 years' time, he had both fights with what's his name? The dude with the beard, Johnny Hendricks. Yeah, he had the Johnny Hendricks fights. He had the fucking war with Rory McDonald, where they were both looking like they were both on a battlefield or some shit. Like both their faces were flat, bloody.
His skin was disgusting.
He kept brawling in that fight, and Jay mentioned a guy for you guys named Tank Abbott. Okay.
Oh, that's old school. Knockout artist.
The John L. Sullivan of the UFC.
Jay mentioned him. Let me tell you guys something about Tank Abbott. Now, UFC is mixed martial arts, guys. So these guys have some form of discipline, whether it be Greco-Roman wrestling, jiu-jitsu, it doesn't matter, Muay Thai. They have a form of discipline. But Tank Abbott
Just
was
swing
a
them things.
bouncer. He was a bouncer, literally, guys. He was a street fighter / bouncer that decided to compete in the UFC.
Like Jorge Masvidal.
And Tank Abbott was a bruiser. He would beat the best of them. That's what makes the UFC so great. You still have guys like that. Thank you, Mr. Two Hands. Today, like Jorge Masvidal. They come into the game and they're such good fighters that they start to adapt these other skills. Don't get it twisted. Don't think that Tank Abbott didn't start to adapt to some forms of wrestling because he had to know how to sprawl and get away from guys taking them down. And he did. Jorge Masvidal is a hell of a grappler. People don't even understand. Grappling, he's class A grappler. So they adapt. But they come in this game straight brawlers. That excitement, man, that excitement, just the knowledge of that, that's what's making the UFC, so appealing right now. And I think that they're doing a good job as far as right now as closing that gap on boxing. The COVID-19 restrictions on sports definitely. Oh, come on back, Jay. I see you back there. I got you, bro. The COVID-19 restrictions definitely put a hindrance on the boxing widening the gap, because I want to be honest, guys. I will say this about boxing. This is not a bash boxing session. I don't think that we would be having this same conversation. And I really mean this. I don't think we would be having this same conversation prior to this COVID-19 pandemic, because let's pay attention to what was going on in the sport of boxing prior to this pandemic. The second half of 2019 was spectacular. The beginning of 2020 started off the same way. And then we had this pandemic. Boxing was back on the rise. The heavyweight division had life sparked back into it, right? So with a sport that's already ahead, back on the rise, they would have widened that gap. They would have widened that gap on the UFC. But when the pandemic struck and they slam all sports, and UFC's the first out the gate, and they were closing ground, even though boxing was starting to step up. Now look what happens. And now entering back into boxing, we already dealing with a whole lot of bullshit, while Dana White has already had 3 successful events. That's closing the gap, bro.
Facts.
Already considering just what's going on recently. There, Amanda Nunes is about to fight Felicia Spencer, this week too, and that's another title fight, man. So we got Francis Ngannou, now Amanda Nunes, the greatest female fighter of all time, back in action, about to make her second featherweight title defense.
Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz is about to probably mix it up again, which I don't care if you guys don't like Nate Diaz. He's a super huge draw. Jorge Masvidal is a super huge draw. The fact that fight ended because of a cut, people going to want to see it again. That's massive. Not only is he probably going to fight Nate Diaz again, the reason he's fighting Nate Diaz again is because Kamaru Usman is another one who's pricing himself out, because Kamaru Usman feels like he's worth all of this money, so he's demanding that if he fights Jorge Masvidal, that the UFC has to pay him a certain amount of money. Well, pump your brakes, Kamaru Usman, because your bald head ass ain't no draw. Yeah, you can fight. Yeah, you're the champ, but you're not the draw. Jorge Masvidal is the draw. So we're not going to pay you more money than we're going to pay the guy who the fans want to see. You idiot. You idiot, Kamaru Usman. Accept the money that they're trying to give you and make the fight happen. But here's the thing, and what's so interesting with the Jorge Masvidal situation, because Kamaru Usman, you idiot. Once again, he don't need you. Jorge Masvidal don't need you. The Nate Diaz fight is huge for him. Guess who else they want to see Jorge Masvidal fight? They would like to see Jorge Masvidal beat the shit out of Kobe Covington because of all the garbage Kobe Covington did at the ATT gym. The fact that Kobe Covington is out of the ATT gym. Guess what, guys? That's another huge fight for Jorge Masvidal. We got all of this action in the UFC, and that ain't even the half of it. We still got Israel Adesanya to talk about. Man, the UFC is on the rise, bro. It's on the rise.
It's in its prime right now, man. It's probably only getting better. This is like one of the greatest moments because we have so many generational fighters that are participating right now at this moment. Henry Cejudo just fought, guys, and he beat Dominic Cruz, one of the best of all time.
Yeah, he's getting ready to retire, though.
Yeah. And he retired. But there's one thing that's important that nobody here mentioned yet, and it was that how UFC beats boxing in this all day. What they do, right? They have like this, I don't know. So they have this website, right? The website's big. They have UFC Fight Pass, but then they have a lot of hits, right? So they do like TV shows like Dana White Looking for a Fight. That's a hit. That boxing does not do any of that. They have The Ultimate Fighter that's been running for over 15, 16 years. Has been a hit for a very, very long time, and it's produced champions, etc. And it's really like a homemade like show, like a Hallmark show, straight up. Like even that in itself is big, and every big fighter, it's traditional actually, and just more things, just more things that are keeping it relevant outside of the UFC, of the octagon, that's making it super big. And boxing hasn't really done any of that. All they talk about is what's going to happen next, and all they get is interviews. But if we talk about programs and stuff like that, it's UFC, man, all the way.
Yeah, they're cutting it down, bro. Ross Clyde in the building. Johnny Boy, Martin Ramos, France. I think I hollered at you already, France. Aob's in the building. Raider from LA just stepped in the building. What's up, fellas? I see you guys. Aob says, "Whoa, D, I just arrived, and you dissing my Nigerian brother." Nah, man. I actually like Kamaru Usman, and I was really, really happy that he beat the shit out of Kobe Covington. And he didn't really beat the hell out of him, but after he broke his jaw, he beat the hell out of him. But I was happy he won that fight, and I like Kamaru Usman. It's just sometimes fighters need to humble themselves, and Kamaru Usman is one of them. He just needs to humble himself, bro, because look, you're not that big of a draw. We have the same problem in boxing, guys. We have the same exact problem in boxing a lot of times. Guys want more money than they're worth. Fuck Adrian Broner right now. At one point in time, Adrian Broner, they might have gave your pumpkin head ass $10 million. But right now, you're not worth $1 million. People been tired of you. They don't want to see you. You're not a draw. So you can't be demanding no $10 million. Well, that's what Kamaru Usman is. You're not a draw, bro. You're a champion, but you're not the draw. You're not. Kobe Covington was the draw in the fight with Kamaru Usman, and Kamaru Usman was the champ. That's a fact, bro. Kobe Covington was the draw.
Hey D, what up? What up, D? How you doing, bro?
What's up, Johnny boy?
What's good? I was both you and Marcus both live, so I'm making my rounds and making a pit. I'm making the rounds. I'm making a pit stop with everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate it.
But I seen you was talking about Masvidal and Colby and Usman and these guys, and y'all know I'm a big fucking Masvidal guy. So I what's it called though? Homeboy who beat the shit out of Woodley the other night, man. Whoo, you better keep an eye on him. Yeah, Gilberto. He looked like Camacho's older cousin, Hector Camacho's older cousin. But Son's a beast, bro. I say him and Masvidal and Usman, them three right there, because Colby's punk bitch ass just got his fucking jaw broken, and I bet you if he comes back in there against somebody with a pulse again, he's gonna get his shit split again, dog.
I'm gonna tell you something about Kobe.
Nice.
Kobe's a beast, bro. And he's got heart. And Jorge Masvidal, I like Jorge Masvidal. But guys, man, like I take this sport and I study this sport and what these guys do in the octagon, just like I do with boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Jorge Masvidal is a draw and he's a star. He's an excellent grappler. But, bro, I have to put Jorge Masvidal a step under Usman and Covington. And I know people don't like to hear that, but bro, I think they're a dangerous fight for him.
This is what I'll say to that, D. This is what I'll say to that. You have to put Usman ahead of him. For one, he has the title. For two, he's coming back off back-to-back great wins. He just beat Woodley, who was the long reigning welterweight champ, you know, and then he beat the number one contender in the interim title in Covington. So you got to put Usman above everybody, you know, because he's coming out. He just beat Woodley and Covington back to back. You know what I'm saying? So you got to put him above the stride. But whether I'd rank Covington above Usman, or I mean Covington above Masvidal, nah, because all he beat was a 40-year-old Robbie Lawler and a 40-year-old Dos Anjos, and the kid can fight. I don't, as much as I can't stand the son of a bitch. Colby's a good fighter. He's a good fighter.
See, the thing is,
honestly, that broken jaw separated Usman from losing that fight.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Usman, he didn't just beat Tyron Woodley. He fucking dominated him.
Dominated Tyron Woodley
every fucking round. And
dominated.
To do that to a Tyron Woodley, and for Colby Covington in there and fight and have a fight with him like that, with having a broken jaw after the third round, no, fuck that, bro. Colby Covington is a fucking monster, and they better hope his jaw do give in, because if his jaw don't give in against somebody, they in fucking trouble. Usman could have lost that fight. Look, I had Colby Covington literally winning the first two rounds. Usman coming back in the third round, and then he took over those championship rounds. Yeah. But clearly he came back and took over in the third round because he broke his jaw. But let's say he doesn't break his jaw. Does Usman win that fight?
You don't win that fight.
No.
You don't win that fight. And that's the reason why Usman doesn't win that fight, in my opinion. Because Usman wanted to punish him so bad, and he had the pulls. He's on this alpha, bro. He's on this alpha, you know what I'm saying, bravado kick, the way he got to be the big tough guy that got to exchange hand to hand with him, considering all of the beef. If Usman would have went to his wrestling, if he would have took him to his wrestling, pressed him with his strength, put him on the ground and ground and pounded him and really grinded him out using this technique, I feel as though it would have been a much more dominating, convincing win on Usman's part, considering we just brought up Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley is a man with a 98% takedown defense. He has the best defense, takedown defense in UFC, and he pretty much just made him look regular. So I'm just saying, when Usman was losing those first couple of rounds trying to box with Colby, and Colby was giving it to him hands and feet, Usman should have, you know what I'm saying, employed his wrestling skills. They completely abandoned the wrestling. Both of them abandoned the takedowns for real, and I think it hurt both of them in the fight.
Oh, I'll tell you what, it was a hell of a fight. But yeah, I had it two apiece going into that fifth round with them. But yeah, man, and I want to, yo, and don't forget, because Johnny Boy is racist, bro. That's why he's rooting for because Johnny Boy is racist, right? That's why he's rooting for the Nigerian cat over the fucking loudmouth cocksucker. Yeah, fuck out of here. Come on, man.
Johnny Boy, you already know, man. What's understood don't even gotta be explained, bro. Don't even fuck.
Yeah, exactly. I just had to point that out.
Just Tim talking with it real quick.
All right. So so I will say this too, guys. Let's remember something about Colby Covington and his wrestling abilities. So Colby Covington's an athlete, first and foremost. So he was a collegiate wrestler. He did good, all Pac-10, all of that. But then a lot of people don't know about Colby Covington. He was in not the WWE. What was that fucking league he was in? Impact. I don't know if you guys heard of that, Impact Wrestling. Colby Covington was a part of that. Like, these wrestlers, guys, WWE, Impact, these guys are athletic. They're athletic. They're athletes, right? Okay, Colby Covington also brought that over. His work rate is second to none. And you're not just, he has enough wrestling that you're not just going to take. You think, I agree with the fact Usman he probably negated his game plan. He probably lost his mental, wanted to hurt that motherfucker, and negated his game plan. I don't think that it would have been as easy for him to manhandle Kobe Covington the way he did Tyron Woodley. Kobe Covington is a lot stronger than people give him credit for, bro. Showed that in that fight. Like,
I have to disagree with you there, D, because you know while you're going into collegiate, when you're going into collegiate accolades, I have to let you know this off the top. We're talking about Tyron Woodley. We're talking about he's a collegiate wrestler out of Mizzou who trained with Ben Askren 24/7, who's a freaking phenomenal wrestler, and he made Tyron Woodley look regular. I'm not taking away anything from Covington's core strength. I'm just saying for the battle that they put on at that time that we had to witness, where both of them are going hands and feet. Both of those guys didn't take advantage of their wrestling because they wanted to prove a point to punish one another, showing their alpha. I'm not taking that away from either one of them. So I feel as though both of them should have employed some ground game to help each other out to stretch the distance, because honestly, it was neck and neck. I feel as though if one of them would have employed it, that probably would have eased the victory a little bit. You know, it just happened that it just went the way it did. But all of them, I'm with you. Kobe Covington was so dominant, you just had to hate him because of his personality, but he had a level of dominance with his wrestling and stuff like that, and his hand game. And on top of that, bro, you got to compare Kobe Covington's engine to like a Manny Pacquiao, because he just doesn't stop. He's got a phenomenal engine. Yeah, I'm just like, bro, will Kobe Covington be the same now after what happened to him in that fight? That's the only thing that'll hold him back.
Yes. I think that, let me tell you something. This dude's character, bro, he's a dick. Yeah, he's an asshole. But his competitive spirit, he has that competitive spirit like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. Yeah. He's going to come back, bro. I'm telling you this about Kobe Covington. You don't have to like the dude. And a lot of people don't. But his competitive spirit, he's coming back, bro. And he's going to be back strong. That fight, and he's going to come back, and I bet you any money he's going to come back calling out Usman. He wants some more of that work.
D, me and you going to have to make a wager and have Masvidal end up fighting.
You know I don't really gamble, Johnny Boy, but I'll do some kind of wager. I think Covington gets him. I think it's going to be. As a matter of fact, if Usman stop acting silly and accept respectable money, I'm betting Usman in that fight over Masvidal. And Masvidal has flaws that I don't think people pay attention to. Don't get me wrong, he has great hands and all of that, but he has flaws that I don't think people pay attention to. And he's damn sure not going to out-wrestle Usman.
No, I agree with you there, D. No, I was just saying a little $10, $15, just make it
interesting. Something like that. Something like that.
Yeah.
We'll just put a $20 super chat on the other person's channel.
All right, bro.
Like that.
But what's your name? Who was talking before? D.
Mr. Two Hands. Yeah.
Two Hands. Oh, okay. Oh, what's up, bro? Everybody vouches for you, says you're a good dude. So that's
the best on YouTube.
Yeah. How you doing, man?
Good, bro. How you?
Good. But yeah, no, I agree. They both abandoned the wrestling because they wanted to outgun the other. Both of them had that. Like I'm gonna fuck you up. Both of them had that attitude going into the fight. The cats ain't like each other. They're like, fuck the wrestling. We just gonna I'll strike each other and see who's more man and who can handle it. I don't got no problem with Usman. I like Usman. I ain't got no problem with Usman at all. Jorge is just my favorite of the welterweights though.
I think that's a part of Kobe Covington's game, like Connor or these guys that talk. Max Tyson Fury, they talk that massive shit to you so that you want to tear their head off. Because if you go in there wanting to tear the head off of a Kobe Covington, you don't want to get into that hand game with him. Bro, he's going to throw 5 while you're throwing 2. That's what he was doing to Usman. Every time Usman threw 2 or 3, Kobe Covington was throwing 5 and 6.
D, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Triple G versus Sergey Derevyanchenko.
Yeah. Exactly,
that's
bro.
A good analogy, dog.
He couldn't get on rhythm. Usman could not get on rhythm with the hands until he broke Kobe Covington's jaw. That's when he started to get on rhythm. And shit. I'm surprised the dude. Let me tell you something. I wouldn't go 1 minute with a broken jaw. I said, I'm done.
Nah, if you're adrenaline pumping, you would be. Hey, nah, don't say that, D. You a DMV cat.
Mr.
You a DMV cat.
Put on the ring like this.
D, you DMV bred, bro. Your adrenaline gonna be pumping so hard they break their jaw. You gonna want to hurt them even more.
D, you ain't got nothing to worry about because you ain't gonna get your jaw broken anyway. You gonna break the other cat's jaw, dog.
All right, dog. I'm going in. I'm a Tasmanian devil if I'm in there.
You ain't gotta worry about getting your jaw broken. The other cat gotta worry about his.
I don't know karate, but I know crazy.
I had my orbital socket fractured before though. I've had that happen to me. I got kicked in the face in a fight in the club and shit. That shit hurt like a motherfucker.
You're fucking right. You don't want to be on the floor in that club. I'm telling you that right now.
No. I got kicked in the fight, but ain't nobody saying about me.
He kicked you in the club?
Front kick, like a V-tor kick?
No, he ran and threw one of these goddamn jumping.
Like a Bruce Lee?
I didn't go on the floor because it knocked me into the wall. So I kind of like bounced off the wall and it was a melee in that bitch. You know what I mean?
He jump kicked you. You did something real fucked up to him.
Yeah, man. That's what we used to do. Fun times, good times. But so back to the discussion before we get too far. I want to start talking about boxing though, because we've been pumping up the UFC. I want to start bringing up some issues about the struggles of the struggles UFC will have in catching the sport of boxing, because as we can say that the UFC has already gained ground on all combat sports. They got 3 events. You 3 events ahead of everybody else during the time of restriction, total sports restriction. You're doing good, okay? So we can say that the UFC has that jump on boxing. But here's the thing. After September, I think that it's probably going to be an even playing field because everybody's going to be settled in on how combat sports are going to have to operate. And now we're going to basically be starting from ground zero again. And UFC has closed that gap. I think we all agree with that. But when you start at ground zero, boxing is still ahead. And we have some pretty promising things that can happen in boxing. If those things are to take place, then boxing probably starts to pull away again, or at least maintain that distance. What do you guys think about that?
Somebody can go first.
Never pulled away. Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Alistair. You started off. Go ahead.
Wait, go ahead.
Well, somebody started off. Jake, Johnny boy. Did I throw y'all off with that one?
Nah, not at all. I was waiting for one of the boys to go first.
I mean, I could start it off then. I'll start it off and then y'all got to maybe feed off of me. So I'll say my idea on it is this. I think that if Bob Arum, first and foremost, if Bob Arum can make these 2 fights happen in September, October, like he plans on making them happen, and I'm talking about Teofimo Lopez and then Monster Nui and Casemiro. And then if we can get Fury Wilder by the end of this year or the beginning of next year, I honestly think that that's enough to keep that distance. First and foremost, because Fury Wilder, the heavyweight division, America versus Britain, that in itself sells. And that's huge. You know, I guarantee you Dana White, none of his events will be sitting there trying to stall that one out. I can guarantee you he wouldn't make that move. And so if we can get these fights, those particular fights, I think that's enough for boxing to keep that distance. Because remember, during that time, September and October, everybody's going to be on level playing field by then. That's just how I look at it. Dana White's pretty much ahead now, but everybody's going to be back on level playing field then. They're going to pretty much understand how the sport is going to operate in this new process.
If you don't mind, D, could I go first on that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't want to step in front of anybody, but yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. that's why I always be tipping my hat to Sean Porter, and I'm gonna get to the top rank in the matchups and that. But that's why I'll be tipping my hat to Sean Porter, man. He said, "Look, bro, after this chaos is through, all y'all had plenty of time to rest. I don't want to hear no kind of bullshit about, oh, I want to tune up. All y'all had plenty of time to rest. I want to fight Thurman. I want to fight Danny. I want to fight Crawford. I want to fight Spence again. What's up?" That's why I'll be tipping my hat to Porter. But yeah, as far as on the top rank side of things go, if they pump them 3 fights out at the end of the year, Fury Wilder 3, Teofimo Lomachenko, and Inoue Casimero, given the circumstances and all the shit that's been going on this year, that's still a good year, bro. For on the top rank side of things, at least. You know what I'm saying? So I agree, D. I agree, 100%.
No doubt. So, Alistair, what do you think?
Yeah, man. This is what I think. I feel like boxing has never ran away with it. You know what I'm saying? In the first place, at least since like the 2000, especially 2015 when UFC introduced the fight kits. That's when I knew the UFC arrived and Conor McGregor came on the scene and Ronda Rousey. And they just did stuff like that. But let me ask you something. How long has boxing been in existence? Like how long? Like when did it get invented?
Talked about that
like how many years?
137 years, bro.
137 years. Okay, how long has the UFC? How many years has the UFC been in?
33.
Been alive?
33.
33.
33.
I thought they started up in 93.
27 years, 26, 27 years.
You're right. I'm thinking shoot fighting, and I've been in the MMA 33 years. So yeah, you're right. About 27 years.
You're all right. So how many years was boxing around in existence before the UFC came in? Like over 100 years?
You just muffled. I heard half that question. But it's 137 versus 27. So it's 110 years more.
So over 100 years until the UFC came on the scene. And okay, yeah. So over 100 years, right? And look at the progress compared to those now. And people are comparing the UFC, talking about how it's going to be on an even playing field with boxing in September when boxing has been not been bigger, but been in existence over 100 years before the UFC even started. So what does that tell you? I feel like it's not even close. Boxing is running away with it, and it's been in the mainstream for almost a decade, probably more than a decade. I feel like boxing, the UFC is running away with it, and they already had it in the bag. I don't feel like it's even close because the same fans that are watching boxing right now are the same fans that are watching MMA on the daily. Remember when Canelo fought Kovalev this year, right? They had them waiting in line for like 30 minutes for the UFC to start, and this was before the pandemic. So how are you telling me you're gonna stop? You're gonna stop the whole entire thing from the whole entire Canelo versus Kovalev? Supposedly the biggest star in boxing, Canelo, right? Supposedly he had to wait for the UFC to start, and this is before the pandemic. This is when boxing was quote unquote hot. You said, D, you said it was hot. And they had to stop it for a UFC event. So that tells you and this was before the pandemic, So, dude, that says a lot to me, first of all. So that's up to me. They already ran away with it. You can say what you want. You could say it's either, it's tied. You could say that whatever, boxing has the edge. You can say UFC has the edge. Bottom line is boxing is where it's at, you know what I'm saying? Because of their consistent level of not putting up fights. And you just have to accept it. You just have to accept what it is. It's not going anywhere. It's not getting bigger. It's not getting smaller. It's just going to stay exactly where it is. And that's why you had to wait so long just to get some fights, bro. You had to wait 2017, same story. 2018, same story. 2019, same story. 2020.
Let me slow you down. Two things, bro. One, don't take out of context what I was saying. Level playing field was basically meaning in September and August, what I was saying about level playing field and they're going to understand how to operate, I was talking about combat sports considering the crowds and considering having to do things behind closed doors, being on level playing field in that aspect. Also, I need you to keep in mind another thing when you say that boxing never ran away with it. The thing is this, boxing never had to run away with anything. UFC has always been at the bottom looking up. Even at this point, they're still at the bottom looking up. Boxing had been established already. So UFC was trying to climb and make themselves relevant and get on that even ground. But they've always been at the bottom looking up. So it was never boxing never running away with it. Boxing was already here. UFC was coming in the door, and they're still climbing that mountain trying to get on that evil. They're not even yet, Alistair.
I agree.
And here's something else you have to think about, Alistair. That was a business move with the Kovalev-Canelo situation. Dana White and Oscar De La Hoya, understand this, Alistair. They have a rivalry, a personal rivalry. That was a dig at Oscar De La Hoya. Yes, Canelo coincidentally is the face of boxing. Yes, but that was a dig at Oscar De La Hoya at Golden Boy Promotions. But business-wise, it was a smart move to hold that fight off. Whether Dana White was digging at him or not. But that's not an indication of the UFC doing anything to boxing. Because let me tell you something right fucking now, Alistair. Dana White couldn't pull that shit with every fight. I was just talking about that. Let's see Dana White try to pull that same thing with Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. Let's see who has to hold off there.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? That fight still hasn't.
Oh, Alistair, we don't do that here. Hold on. Calm yourself down. Because you got your piece off. Now you're going to have to listen to this, buddy, because you're a big UFC fan. You have to understand the grand scheme of things. Nobody in the fucking UFC gets paid $80 million for one fight. The only person in the UFC who got $80 million for one fight was Conor McGregor, and he did it in a boxing ring. Anthony Joshua just got $80 million to fight Andy Ruiz. What I just explained to you was not a fight with a little old fat boy that liked to eat too many chalupas and tacos. This is going to be a fight with Tyson Fury for 4-belt undisputed for the heavyweight title. Let's see Dana White try to pull a stunt like that on that fight, Alistair.
Yeah, that's a good one. That.
How you're talking about.
Say that again one more time about Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, hold on. So the UFC is not there yet. That's what this discussion is about, and I broke that down in the beginning. Let's keep everything in context. This discussion is about the ground that the UFC is gaining on boxing. But we're not even going to get into the discussion of who's at the top, Alistair, because it's not even a competition right now.
D, can I say one thing real fast, brother?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, now they've been around since '93, right? And I've, karate and kickboxing and all that shit, that's always been in my family too. But when I first, when the big push that UFC got was with them Tito and Liddell fights back in the day. That was the big push that really got them up there to where they're getting talked about in the mainstream. And that's what at the time. That's why I say Dana White should be kissing them two boys' ass, bro, because them two are the ones that really pushed it up there mainstream.
I'll be honest. Dana White couldn't pull a stunt like that if it was Canelo versus Charlo.
Yeah.
If it was a Canelo versus Charlo fight, because the PBC is so invested, because everybody wants that fight so bad, he wouldn't pull a stunt like that with that fight.
I'll tell you what.
It had to be that Kovalev fight or something like that.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Let's just for example, just for argument's sake, say Pacquiao and Mikey Garcia fight on the same night as Khabib and Justin Gaethje. Come on, man.
Not even close. That Pacquiao fight, Dana, like I said, Dana White pulled that stunt, and this is where Alistair kind of got lost in translation with that. Understand, Golden Boy, he's always been that Golden Boy. So that stunt was a dig at Golden Boy.
Yeah, and my point being though, a lower level pay-per-view like that, let's just say let's just say it does 500,000 buys, 500,000, right? That's the same kind of level shit as like Gaethje could be. Like if Conor's fighting, it's a different story because that motherfucker's a megastar. But for the most part, bro, it's not like they fucking rocketed past them or any shit like that. Kind of how D's saying. D's saying they're gaining ground on them, but they ain't passed them up yet. Yeah.
No, we're not going to blow it out of proportion. Alistair, you look at it like this. Deontay Wilder, as far as boxer in America, American athlete, he made $25 million plus whatever extras against the fight with Tyson Fury. He's not the face of boxing. He's not the most popular in boxing. He's not the man of boxing, but he made $25 million and will probably make that or more again in the trilogy. Who in the UFC, again, outside of Conor McGregor, which made that much money in boxing only, makes that kind of money. And then when Conor McGregor came back off of making $80 million, he was only offered $5 million.
Indeed. And see, this is something Alistair's missing. You know, the UFC is now partnered with ESPN. They've become a streaming service. See, what gets swept under the rug is you're never going to know what they make. You're never going to know what they do. You're never going to know what those fighters are truly getting paid, you know, afterward, because now they are a streaming company. So at the end of the day, you know, they can paint the picture and say every fight is successful, but that doesn't even mean it's true. And even still, you could talk about the video games. You could talk about the eyes that are on the sport right now. You could talk about what they're doing right now. But what is that up against right now? Because I could tell you what, if there's ever a superstar marquee boxing match going on at any given time that any of the biggest UFC events are going on, I'm talking about superstar boxer next to superstar boxer, or just like they mentioned Manny Pacquiao, it's going to eclipse it. The money eclipses it. It eclipses it in every way. And the money, they're making money in hordes. Like they kind of monopolize over there, the UFC. So no matter what, you're going to get this picture painted like, oh yeah, we're so successful, but you're never really going to see the number. That's why you kind of have to look at UFC's gates. You have to look at their gates, add that number up. If you know what, add that number up. And then you got to look at the pay. You got to look at the streams, how many people are invested in that as well. So it's a smokescreen.
and
reality. And the UFC perception is what makes it what it is. The perception is reality. Like I said with the video games, here's another point. Here's another point to counter. Right?
That was. I'm not cutting you off. I was just going to segue off what you were saying. That was a great point that you made earlier. But we had a couple other people go in front of me. The fact that they brought up the video, you brought up the video game. You know, that's a great point because boxing has not had their hands on any of those things, and that is because of the fact that we've been suffering from the fights. You know. Those are the type of things that keep UFC in the runnings of evolving, getting better, and trying to go in the direction where they're going to surpass boxing. But here's the thing, though. When they bring up, you know, the Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, stuff like that, that's when it's kind of like, ugh. That's when UFC comes a backseat.
I was going to say this. Yeah, I was going to say this, though. What's the biggest sport in the world, guys? What's the biggest sport in the world?
Football.
Soccer, right? Football. Soccer, right? How many soccer, football, the game has a video game out. Not only one, they have two: PES, Pro Evolution Soccer, and they have FIFA, which has been a marquee franchise, had millions of people and millions of things like that. So it shows that if you want to be a mainstream sport, you have to have the mainstream game.
Slow down, bro. Slow down. Let me explain to you the business of that, because you're mixing it up, and it doesn't translate that way. That's not how it translates, and that's not why. Video gaming is a total different business, okay? You have sports and you have video gaming. Yes, they're intertwined because you have video sports games. But with the UFC and boxing, remember, Alistair, boxers make way more money, okay? So when athletes make way more money, if there's any type of endorsements or anything involved, then you have to pay them way more money to get them involved. So when you use the likeness and the characters of these boxers to produce a boxing game, you have to pay way more money than that. It's not feasible for EA or whoever to create the boxing game when they can go take these UFC fighters and say instead of paying them $2 million for their likeness, they pay them a couple of $100,000 or better yet, $50,000, and they let them use their likeness and they can create this game. So there's a lot more factors that go into this gaming. If it's not feasible, if it doesn't make business sense, then EA Sports ain't gonna fucking do it, bro. And the sales for Fight Night, think about this too, Alistair. The sales from Fight Night is also going to calculate in if they're going to make that game or not, if they're going to pay these boxers for their likeness to make that game. But it doesn't translate because they made a game here that, oh, this is a more popular sport. The thing with FIFA and the NFL and the NBA, those games are going to sell out the yin yang. So for EA Sports, there's no risk. There's no calculated risk that they have to take. When they look at UFC and boxing, there are calculated risks that they have to factor in before they can produce this game. So it don't work that way, Alistair.
And you know, it's not like UFC came into the video game situation and they were just immediately successful. They tried, UFC, what was it called? UFC Undisputed or whatever through I think it was THQ. Was it through THQ or was it somebody else? It was somebody else. The game they started when they first did the first one with Brock Lesnar on the cover. Those games started off okay, and then it eventually failed. They only got to do 3, so they revisited the UFC again. The UFC revisited the video game market once again when they had Conor McGregor, and they had Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey at the height of their stardom, and really had that heavy buzz. So that's when they implemented EA. That's when EA Sports picked up the UFC, and that's when they started all over again. So it wasn't like the UFC was just successful in video games and that just kept translating to more video games. They even had their downturn where they had to start it all over again, because even with their first shot at video games, it didn't necessarily work out. So video games, like you said, video games transition when you have certain levels of stars. But here's my thing that I got to say towards, people saying UFC's catching it and running away with it and all of these things. In the eyes of individuals who it might appear to look that way, that's flawed. Because I'm going to tell you one thing about boxing. Once boxing gets that influx of stars back in it, once those prospects come up, they get the star mention. Once Manny Pacquiao rides off into the sunset, and then you actually got these younger crop in here, and people are starting to take notice of these guys' charisma, their likeness, their skills. And once they start getting painted pictures of stars and the masses start paying attention to them, UFC is getting the clips, because I'm telling you, bro, these young guys that are breaking through in boxing right now, this is the era where, these prospects, these boxers, they're going to return. They're going to return that era of boxing if things go, if half of them fight. Once they get those eyes on it, bro, it immediately changes everything. All you looking at is big money boxing events, because when it comes to MSG, when it comes to T-Mobile Arena, when it comes to freaking MGM Grand, when it comes to the Staples Center and all of that, they coming out. They're coming out, and the pay-per-view is going to sell.
I was going to say, there's another thing, yo. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? So I go to the boxing gym or whatever. I talk to people around my age group, right? Not really like OGs like that, right? But I asked him about boxing. I'm like, okay, because you already know we know a lot about boxing. But I want to ask just a regular kid or whatever, does he know about boxing? I'm like, who's your favorite fighter? And they would just tell me, oh, Mike Tyson. And then I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, cool. But who's your favorite fighter right now? And then they're like, oh, I don't know. I have no idea. That is what I'm talking about. But if you talk about UFC, you say, who's your favorite fighter in UFC? They'll say like Conor McGregor or something. That is a big problem. Because the fan base in boxing is really mainly definitely like people at 18, you know what I'm saying, or older. And boxing has always been a mainstream sport before, like around the 90s or the 80s, stuff like that. Like when Ali was around and Mike Tyson was around, that was when it was like NBA level, right? But I mean, now it's like people, those figures were so iconic that when you look at boxing today, it's not really going to have people really measuring up into like
Mr. Two Hands, hold on right quick. Alistair, answer me this, Alistair. Answer me this about that statement. This is a question based on that statement you just made right there, my friend. And since you are a young man, for everybody that don't know, Allison's 19 years old. He's fresh, you know. Okay, so Alistair, since you are a young man, who in the UFC, which UFC star, you take your pick, has anywhere close the social media following of your fucking age group as a Tank Davis or Ryan Garcia?
Wait, say that again. Say that again.
Who
Say that
in
again.
the fucking UFC, any of them,
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
the social media following of your age as Tank Davis or Ryan Garcia? Let me answer this for you. No fucking one.
Tank Davis.
Tank Davis or Ryan Garcia. There's no.
Let me answer that because that's an easy. That's an easy.
Hold on, dog. You gotta let other people talk. There is. I follow UFC and follow this sport too, Alistair, and know a lot more about it than you think I do. There ain't no fucking body in the UFC right now that has anywhere close the media, social media following of your age group, my friend, than Tank Davis or Ryan Garcia. No one, nowhere even close. So when you start to use the demographics of a younger age group, they are already influencing your age group more than anybody in the UFC, bro. You got to keep this stuff in context, bro. I know you're a huge UFC fan. Guess what, Alistair? So am I. I'm a huge sports fan. But in the context of this thing, I got you, Mr. Tuhan. In the context of this whole situation, Alistair, the UFC, that's why I wanted you to keep this conversation in context. The UFC is not there yet, my friend. It ain't there yet. This conversation has to be kept on the level of the UFC gaining ground on boxing. And that's it, Alistair. When we start crossing this line and start trying to compare the two as if the UFC is rivaling it or about to take over, nah, Alistair, it ain't like that. It's not. That's not what this conversation is about, and it's not even close to that yet. That point that you're trying to bring to this conversation, we're like 15 years away from that, bro. At least.
Hey D, to kill that conversation, bro.
You didn't let me answer the question, bro.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, my answer. So my first answer to that is, weren't you saying that? Oh, Tank Davis, the people that follow Tank Davis aren't even going to be buying his fights. All those millions of followers aren't going to be buying his fights. First of all, they follow Tank because of his fashion. They follow Tank because of his lifestyle and the way he operates himself. Number one. Number two, Ryan Garcia got big off of Instagram by showing like boxing videos on Instagram, like the cool things he would do in boxing, which is cool, right? But are we talking? But is that related to PBC? Is it related to the top ranked boxer? No. So for real, if you think about it, it's really so he's a self-made marketer. If you really think about it. So I don't really consider that too much. But anyways,
Alistair, but to be perfectly honest, all of the megastars in boxing, to be truthful, they had to burst through the ceiling on their own. Every promotional company, they just don't throw these guys in the front of, major marketed videos and stuff like that. That is one of the major problems in boxing right now when it comes to the prospect. They're not promoted. They have to bust through the ceilings on their own, like the Floyd Mayweathers, like the Manny Pacquiao's, like Anthony Joshua right now. They're self-made. And once they get that steamroll, once they get that steamroll of momentum going in fandom, that's when the companies start to invest in them, because boxing is almost like the music industry in a sense where it's like, it's not worth you investing crazy money into these fighters that you're not necessarily going to get back. So you have to monitor fighters' legacy, do what you can do for them, promote them, try to put them in fights that are going to elevate their status, let them go in the ring and show off. And then outside of the ring, it's almost upon you to do work outside of the work that they're not doing. This is the state of boxing right now. And that's just due to the fact that there's less eyes on it due to all the things that we were speaking on. But outside of that, boxing is always going to be in the forefront for this one reason, and this will just close out the argument quick. You tell me one UFC fighter that can make $100 million in the UFC right now.
Yeah.
That's the end of discussion.
25.
Conor McGregor had. Hold on, Alistair. Conor McGregor had to leave the UFC and go fight Floyd Mayweather, who is a already established 9-figure fighter per fight, to get $100 million purse. So he got his $100 million and he went back to the UFC. And before that, he became a glutton mentally and physically. And he started doing outlandish things because he got a hold of so much money that he's never tasted in his life. Now, I ask you again, how many other fighters right now have you heard of in the past year that have tried to cross over and go to boxing and fight other boxers because they want a big purse as well? And that's something that they're not receiving in the UFC. And that's one of the biggest complaints right now. When John Jones, your biggest star, is talking about relinquishing his belt because the super fight that he wants with Izzy, considering Izzy's star power and his star power, and these are the guys that are really moving the needle and selling the tickets, and he can't get that increase in purse that he's looked for after all of the blood, sweat, and tears that he's provided and the tickets sold in that corporation. That tells you everything. But once again, not one fighter in the UFC is making 9-figure purses. And until that day starts, it'll never be bigger than boxing.
And look, let me show
I
you.
was going to say that it was a misunderstanding, guys. Misunderstanding.
Well, all right, somebody got feedback.
Okay, it's probably me because I'm on my other phone, bro. Let me mute this.
All right. Alistair, I want to show
I
you.
wasn't talking about that, but okay. I wasn't talking about it having more money. We know boxing has more money, but I was saying that stardom is always gonna get ahead in life. So, you know, I said I didn't talk about money. I was talking about stardom in general, but money-wise, yeah.
You're talking about stardom. Boxing has more stars than the UFC, bro. That's what I was trying to explain.
Not true. But I was gonna say that.
What do you mean not true?
I was gonna say that it was like a corporation. So yeah, of course, boxing wins because of the corporation. I give them credit for that. They established themselves. Their corporation is big, but it's all about the fans at the end of the day. If your fans aren't up to date, then.
All right, Alistair, look, check this out. I just shared the screen so you can see it there, right? So you see this kid, right? He's a kid. I watch him every now and then on YouTube. He's amateur. He's coming up in the boxing ranks, right? And he has a YouTube channel. You see the amount of views on this is just one of his videos. You see the amount of views on this video, Alistair? This is a kid that's not even professional yet. And look at the type of following this kid. This video right here had 5.3 million views. This is a kid who is not even a professional boxer yet, bro. And look at the following. And this kid has, once again, Alistair, your age group following him, right? What star? Because I follow a lot of UFC stars on Instagram, on Twitter. Don't get me started. I had Eric Anders up here. You've seen it. So I follow these guys, Alistair. What UFC star gets those kind of views, Alistair? This kid's not even a star.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Okay, that's backyard boxing, man. Backyard boxing.
It doesn't matter, bro. It's the sport of boxing. And what I'm telling you is he's able to accumulate this kind of following, and he's not even a fucking pro, my nigga. So when you talk about UFC stars, they should be able to, like you're saying that they have all of these stars, they should be able to get that kind of following in the blink of an eye. But I have seen Israel Asanya videos, who's one of the biggest stars of the YouTube, with like 1 million views. This kid ain't even a star. He got 5 million views, Alistair. That's influence.
Is he a bigger star than Izzy? No.
Look, that's my whole point, Alistair. You're helping me out, dog. You're helping me out. This kid, Little Karaka, is not even a star. He's just an aspiring boxer. And you're helping me out because Israel Asanya is a champion and a UFC star, but he can't even get more views in social media than this kid that's not even a pro, bro. So you're helping me out, bro.
And my point is they don't even know him. So what's going to happen in the future? Is he going to get those views in the future, like consistently as Israel? No, because he's not established.
You're not making sense, bro. At least 5 million people know him. What do you mean? Can you see people?
Alistair, do you believe that when this kid transcends into boxing, do you believe his fans are going to disappear from him, or are they going to follow him and follow him in his pro career?
It's happened before. It's happened before, dude.
I'm just saying, when you have a following, when you have a dedicated following, and they're following you for what you're doing, and that's your profession. So if he's going to continue to go into amateur boxing and the pros, his following is going to go with him. So that following then turns into a fan base if you're not looking at it that way.
And then honestly, you said it happened before. When? When has it happened before?
2009, 2010, old videos, man. I still remember that shit.
No, but what athlete has turned boxing that had a following like that fans just abandoned them? When has that happened before?
Okay, so see, now I'm not understanding. Now I'm confused because are you saying this guy is a well-known amateur boxer, or is this just a viral video that just went viral on YouTube?
No, he has millions, hundreds of thousands of views on many videos that he has, bro. This is just a guy. He's an aspiring boxer, bro. He's an aspiring boxer. But here's the point, Alistair, you're missing the point. Let's not make too much about Little Caracas. Let's make the situation the fact that social media was your point. I'm just attacking your point on social media of your demographics, the age group of you. This is why I brought up Ryan. This is why I brought up Tank Davis. This is why I brought up Little Caracas, who's not a star like Ryan, Israel, or Tank. He's not even a professional boxer, but he's able to capture the audience in the same arena that you were talking about more than your UFC stars.
He had to do it in the creative manner, like fighting.
It doesn't matter how, Alistair, he's doing it. You have a guy that's a star who has a belt, and you're talking about being a creative manner. That shit shouldn't matter.
He's a YouTube star. He's a YouTube star.
Yeah, Anthony Joshua or Canelo or any of these guys try to get those numbers. They're going to get those numbers easy. But the UFC stars can't figure out how to get those numbers. So you have to keep this in perspective. The UFC is on the way up, but they're not close, bro. You turn this conversation into, the UFC ain't flew by shit, bro. At the moment when you said the UFC already ran away with it, that's when the whole conversation turned around. Because the UFC has not ran away with a goddamn thing, bro. They haven't even ran up to boxing yet, more than running away.
It's funny because their company is bigger than all the boxing companies. What's the biggest boxing company right now, like promotion? What's the biggest boxing company?
You just don't get it. You just don't get it. Their company, you saying, is bigger than every boxing company, right? But if you made $20 million a year, Alistair, right? And then you got a company, you got 6 different companies that's making $15 million a year, then who's making more money? Because if I'm not mistaken, 6 times 15 is more than the 20 million. Essentially, that's what you're saying, because you have Top Rank, Matchroom, Golden Boy, PBC. Okay, so collectively, because this is the sport of boxing versus the sport of the UFC. So collectively,
no.
This is, look at my title. This is not Alistair. It's my title: boxing versus UFC. That's what this is about, bro. So this is the sport of boxing versus the sport of UFC. So you can't take UFC, the company, and just compare it to Golden Boy. You can't do that because Golden Boy is boxing, Matchroom is boxing, DAZN is boxing. So when you take all of that and you compare those two, the sport versus the sport, it's no fucking comparison, bro. It's not even close.
Then why would you compare it then? Why would you compare it in the first place?
I just responded to your comparison. You said, when you take the business and you compare it to any of those, I said, no, you can't do it like that. You have to take the UFC and compare it to all of them because all of them are boxing, not just one of them. You started this comparison. I was just debunking it before you brought it to the table.
Well, no, because you actually made the video saying boxing versus UFC like it was like there was actually a challenge, as if MMA could actually challenge UFC. No.
Right. Well, Alistair, 2 things you have to do, my friend. And this is what young people, especially in your demographics, have a problem doing. One is listening, okay? Listening. You have to listen because everybody in the chat knows this. Everybody on the panel knows this, but it seemed to have missed you. This entire conversation, boxing versus UFC, the concept that we were supposed to stay, the context that we were supposed to stay within is how UFC is catching up to boxing. See, that was the context. Also, something that you kids don't do these days, which is why you don't read. Right in my fucking description breaks this down, what I'm telling you. Also in the description. See, all of that is a part of the research, which is why you guys don't really know, you kids don't know as much as you think you do. All you had to do was read the description or listen earlier to what I told you. This conversation was boxing versus UFC in the context of the UFC catching up with boxing. But once again, Alistair took it way overboard because the UFC ain't there yet, fam. It's not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's one more thing. So you said that there was a lot of boxing companies, like it was one company versus like 3 or 4 or 5. Well, those 3, 4, or 5 companies are all averaging around, they're all competing within each other, right? Averaging around the same views as the MMA is. But what's funny about it is the UFC is doing more events, right, in a year than boxing, than all those companies, Top Rank, what PBC is doing in the whole year, and they're averaging more pay-per-views because then boxing is a year. You can't say that they're not, because what was the last boxing pay-per-view? What, Earl Spence?
Alistair, let me ask you something. If you had a choice of 2 businesses, right? Let me ask you, what would you want to do? If you had a choice of owning 2 businesses, one, you would have to work 200 days a year. And every day you would have to do something 200 days a year. And then you had another business where you would only have to work 75 days a year. But in the business you had to work 75 days a year, you made triple the money. But the business that you had to work 200 days a year, you made less money. Which one would you pick? Of course, everyone would pick the business where they had to do less work but make more money. So the example that you're giving right now, Dana White putting on all of these events, blah, 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 blah. He's doing more work for less money. You know why? Because it does not take that much work for boxing to make that kind of money, Alistair, which is something further that shows you boxing is ahead. Here's something else that's really important, Alistair, before you keep putting on this fight. And while we should have kept this in context, sports in general follows entertainment, meaning Hollywood, rap industry, television. When these celebrities go to these events, so does the money follow. Which events gets more celebrities? Boxing or UFC?
UFC. And one more thing. Dana White's making more money than Eddie Hearn and all them. Dana White's net worth? Like over $1 billion, bro. He's a billionaire.
Listen.
On the road. So his job is easy, man. His job is easy.
In your mind, bro. The stars, the criminals, because don't think that the criminal element is not a factor either. The stars, the criminals, the athletes, entertainment show up to boxing more, bro. Don't even fool yourself. They don't show up to UFC events more. They show up to boxing events more. And that's what the last time entertainment, bro. That's a fact. Historically, that's a fact.
When was the last time boxing had a fight in the stadium? When was the last time they fought in the stadium? Because you'll have more celebrities at a stadium than at an arena. So, what was the last time?
That's not true. Ringside is where you see the stadiums. The crowd, the people, is where you see in the nosebleed. The fucking Hollywood stars ain't sitting in the fucking nosebleed section or anywhere far in there. So what you just said is absolutely not true at all. The money seats are closer to the ring. So I don't care. Yeah, again, you're comparing apples and oranges here. Does Dana White do a better job at putting on certain events? Naturally, he's doing that now. He's showing that now. But that's a whole nother discussion. And we talked about that earlier with the hands being in the cookie jar. But again, what I just asked you is about how many stars or where do more stars show up at? And then you told me some shit about the arena. Man, that don't make a goddamn difference. If you're in a Coliseum, you have an octagon and you have a boxing ring. If you're in an arena, you have an octagon and you have a boxing ring. If you're in a fucking stadium, you have an octagon and you have a boxing ring. But the stars and the big money seats are close to that ring. I don't care how big everything is around it. And those people are not sitting in the nosebleed section. You think Tom Hanks is going to sit in the fucking nosebleed section with some fucking binoculars, my nigga? You think Dwayne Rock Johnson going to sit in the nosebleed sections? Alistair, stop it.
I didn't say that. So
okay,
you're missing my
still
point.
more stars at boxing events, Alistair. Because we're fighting in a bigger arena doesn't mean.
You missed my point, though. You missed my point. My point was that even though it was a stadium, right, it was still going to have a lot more celebrities being in, because I get it. They're in the front, right? It was gonna just be more celebrities in the front, and UFC could prove that. They could prove that, and plus they could prove that big time, bro. And you can't tell me
you
one
can't, bro. How
stars
can you
the
prove that? Well, do me this, Alistair, because you've been working on some stuff. Just give me some little clips. Give me some little clips of some UFC events that got more stars. Because I'm not really even going to argue this one with you, bro. The stars clearly show more up at boxing events, bro. Trust and believe that. I got something that should shut you down right here, Alistair. Hold on. Because you're delusional right now, and you usually go down this path. So we got to bring you back to reality. And I'm going to leave it at this right here. You had Chuck Liddell, UFC star. Don't say he wasn't. You had Tito Ortiz, UFC star. Don't say he wasn't. And I mean star when they were fighting. So they came back to put on an exhibition event to fight each other, right? Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell. The fucking event flopped, Alistair. That's no secret either. It flopped, okay? Don't you know that bare knuckle fighting president offered Mike Tyson $25 million fucking dollars, bro? This is an ex-champ from boxing coming back to put on an event. You see what I mean? That's the difference that should show you right there. Don't nobody give a fuck about Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, even though they were that big of stars. But Mike Tyson and Holyfield or Mike Tyson and Shannon Briggs, $25 million, Alistair? You know, if they offer $25 million, Alistair, if they're offering $25 million, then the views are going to justify that. You ain't even getting UFC stars, Alistair, being offered $25 million. Tyson ain't fought in almost 15 fucking years, my nigga. Stop it, Alistair. It ain't fucking close, dude. What's wrong with you? It ain't fucking close, Alistair.
Chuck Liddell, they're not as big as iconic Mike Tyson.
No. The sport is not close. Get it through your mind.
Not just that. Mike Tyson, right? He's been doing a lot of things outside of boxing that's made him really famous, like comedy. He has his own TV show.
Get with us. It's not close to boxing. Accept it. See, you sat up here and you tried to give Mr. Two Hands, myself, and Jay some facts. And you sat up here and said, hey, guys, you just got to accept it. The UFC, no, you have to accept it. The UFC ain't there yet. You just got to accept it, Alistair. We have given you so many reasons to let you know that it's not there yet, but it ain't clicking for you. Like,
no, because you aren't as big as you think it is. Because like I said, I made big points already about why UFC has already been at that point. Like I said, Dana White's making $500 million, and he did it within like 20-something years. So that's all I gotta say.
And Dana White, okay, Alistair, see, look, bro, you don't understand shit, dog. Really, I swear you don't. Dana White, you just bragged on how much money Dana White made. And as an owner who sold the organization, and now
volume went out. Volume went out.
Okay, well, let it stay out for a second. Listen. Oh, he fell off. Dana White is an ex-owner of this organization and the top dog of this organization. But the money he made and the money that you're bragging on right now is comparable to a fucking boxer, Floyd Mayweather. Not the organization of boxing, a boxer. And that's a fact, Alistair. The money he's made is comparable to a fucking boxer, bro. Not the whole organization. And this is what you're bragging on. Alistair, it ain't close, dog. It ain't close.
One thing you got to realize is what I said was how long
it's not close. What is it going to take for you to understand that the UFC is not close?
Has been established for 100 years, right? I already said that.
That's why
I said they've been making that kind of money before UFC even started. So the money that you're bragging about Floyd Mayweather, he was making that in 2009, in the 90s, 2000, 2001, 05, 07. Okay. So he already had the lead. That's why you're saying that UFC is counting.
Alistair, you know how much money, how much money Dana White made for the UFC and the Fertitta brothers and Disney and the whole partnership. Do you know how much money Dana White himself pulled in, at least concerning Forbes? The report on Forbes, how much he pulled in last year himself, not for the company, for himself. Let me make this easy for you, Alistair, before you try to dig around and think about it. Money. less money than Forbes reported for Tyson Fury bringing in. Now, let that sink in.
Oh, what did you say again, D? What's the question?
Yeah. The net amount that Dana White brought in personally for himself, not for the UFC and the business collectively, was less reported amount than what Tyson Fury brought in as a fucking boxer, bro. And you're bragging on Dana White.
But that's really nothing. This is how I see it, right? This is how I see it, right? The person that is making the most money, right, in whatever sport it is, more than every other boxer, despite them even being stars, is to me a bigger success than having a million stars in boxing, and all of them are making 1 million, 2 million, whatever. But then you have the biggest cash cow like Conor McGregor, who's a bigger star than Floyd Mayweather Jr. You can't say he's not. I'm getting paid how much money? Like 100 million.
He's not a bigger star than Floyd Mayweather. What are you, stupid?
Get off the crack you smoking. He had to try to boost his fame off the back of Floyd Mayweather, and he still doesn't even get purses equally his size. I'll sit here and watch you sell some.
Alistair, look, this going sideways. We can't even. We got
Instagram.
Hold on, Alistair, chill. We really got to stop this now, because once you said that, this conversation is over with. Understand this, bro. And I just explained this to you earlier. While you're saying that Conor McGregor is a bigger star than Floyd Mayweather, you sound absolutely retarded with that. And I will tell you why. Conor McGregor got paid $80 million solely and only because of Floyd Mayweather. That's number one. That's the only reason he ever made that much money, because he never would have made that kind of money over in the UFC. That's number one, Alex. Number two, after going off that fight, which I already mentioned to you, he went back to the UFC as a professional athlete in a real match and earned $5 million. Floyd Mayweather, for 3 fucking minutes in an exhibition match against Tension, made double that, 10 million. Are you freaking crazy right now?
The funny part about that,
are you crazy right now?
Conor McGregor is an MMA star. What is he doing over in boxing? It shows you how big he is. And
no, it does not matter what you're saying. You're not even making sense to yourself right now. None of that matters, because he needed boxing. Everything you're saying is throwing you off. He needed boxing to do that. Floyd Mayweather did an exhibition match and made double the money that Conor McGregor made in a real MMA match. And you're sitting here trying to compare the two.
He was in boxing.
It doesn't matter. You can't compare the two. Exhibition match shows how popular you are. You're not going to make a lot of money in an exhibition match unless you're popular, Alistair. Do you understand this? You think Conor McGregor can go anywhere and for a 3-minute exhibition match make 10 million? You think anybody's going to pay him 10 million?
I think they could pay him pretty close to it. And Floyd Mayweather needed Conor to make that money.
They can't pay Conor $100 million.
Alistair, look, I'm gonna ask you to retire for the rest of the day, because I'm gonna ask you to retire for the rest of the day, because I think that you're so interested in wanting to be right that you're not really speaking rationally now.
Yeah, he's not listening. He just gonna continue to go with the argument because he don't want to be wrong and not care how crazy.
I made a comeback every time you said something.
No, Alistair, but you've come back, bro. You've come back. I'll give you that. But you're not making any sense when you're coming back, because you cannot sit up here and say that for an exhibition match, Conor McGregor will get $10 million when for a real life match, he's only being paid $5, my nigga. You're not even making sense. That's why I said this has to end. I have to retire you, because for a real live professional fight, he's only getting $5 million. And you're saying he'll get paid $10 million for an exhibition? So yeah, you're coming back, but you're coming back with absolute foolishness. So once it gets to that point, this conversation's over with, bro. And that's what you're doing right now, because you just don't want to, I guess, be wrong in this conversation when we really shouldn't have never taken it here, because you went out of context with it, bro. It was about the UFC catching up, not the UFC being better and leaving boxing. And thanks for coming on, Mr. Two Hands. I know your phone messing with you, fam. So let's stop all of that. about the UFC being over boxing. And since we've been on for two hours, I'm gonna let you go, Alistair, and give your closing thoughts, which you guys buckle up and get ready, because it's probably gonna be some delusion involved. And then I'm gonna let Jay go. But simply put, I think to get the conversation back into context, I think that the UFC is doing a damn good job at this point in closing the gap on boxing as far as popularity of the sport growing and so far. I think that they're doing a damn good job. And the point of this whole discussion was to show that the UFC is definitely closing the gap. They are closing the gap. And that was my point. Like, they're moving in on boxing. And like I was telling Alistair, we're 10, 15, 20 years maybe away from them being official rivals or passing the sport of boxing, but they're moving in the right direction. So, Alistair, give me some closing thoughts on what you think concerning the UFC and the sport of boxing.
Well, I feel like what was I gonna say, man? Like, shoot. Well, like Floyd Mayweather and all those guys. I mean, I feel like, oh yeah. So the money thing is the only thing that boxing has definitely always had an advantage over. Like you said, with the money and how they can make money. I feel like once UFC caught, because that's always been the argument, the counter, right? So I feel like once they close the money and they start paying guys like John Jones, they start paying him $30 million and stuff, then it's over. Then that's the last thing that will make boxing bigger than MMA. After that, it's pretty much finished after that, because UFC is officially a corporate, whatever you call it. But outside of that, man, boxing has been doing its thing. You know what I mean? They've been on the sidelines, but here's the thing though. What if the pandemic, right, continues all the way until 2 years from now, 1 year from now, whatever the case may be, and it slows down boxing's business? Meanwhile, all you see is UFC all the time. UFC this, UFC that. And then it's a point where it really does catch up to where it's like, dang, man, I'm tired of this UFC stuff. Where's the boxing? But then because the UFC is so good, you're forced to just do nothing but just look at that now. Just follow the fighters, saying the backgrounds, saying what's going on in the MMA streets. And yeah, you're forced to get accustomed to it until it becomes like a new hobby, until you pretty much have nothing to do left until boxing comes back. And then when it comes back, boxing has to go right away and do something big to get themselves back in, saying the thing, because in boxing aren't really that relevant too much. You know what I mean? Like Joshua, those guys aren't really that relevant right now. But yeah, that's all I got to say pretty much, guys. Been a great live. Been a great live, y'all. And
hey, Alistair, before you go, I just went and looked it up. Dana White, right? I wanted to look it up to make sure that I was correct on the numbers. So for the last report on Dana White, they reported Dana White making right over $20 million. And they just reported Tyson Fury making over $60 million. So I just want you to know that. That was the annual, what they bought in annually. $20 million. So a heavyweight boxer made more than the great Dana White. I want you to take that away with you and think about popularity.
Dana White's popularity to Tyson Fury's popularity?
No. Money equates to this popularity you're talking about, period, Alistair. You can chalk it up however you want. If the NFL didn't have so many viewers, those athletes wouldn't be making so much money. If the NBA didn't have so many viewers, people watching these networks, the fan base, then they wouldn't be making so much money. So you can't keep saying the money is all that they have over them. The money tells you, that shows you which sport is more popular, because it's from the viewership, Alistair. You have to connect. You have to.
Are you saying that Tyson Fury is bigger than Dana White?
No, what I'm telling you is Tyson Fury, a single boxer, made 3 times the income as Dana White did. But when you just in this live, you just bragged and boast on how much money Dana White's making, and you utilize that to justify how the UFC is bigger. But what I'm telling you is the president, the guy that's doing everything, he made 3 times less than just a single boxer. A single boxer.
Yeah, but not overall. Like overall, we obviously know he's way more richer than
No,
10
no, yeah,
times.
yeah, it's overall net worth from what he's accumulated. But in the last year income,
Yeah.
yeah, he didn't bring in that much. 3 times.
I don't. We don't know about that for sure because we can't listen to
Again,
it.
Alistair, I just said which what was reported by Forbes, bro. You have
Yeah,
to
Dana White makes a lot of money off. Dana White makes a lot of money every event. You know that, right?
Alistair, what was reported by Forbes? Okay, so a report by Forbes is not going to display everything, Alistair. We get that. You're not, but
Okay.
it sticks to the sports. So just sticking to the sports, utilizing articles, because this is what we do. You plan on starting a channel, so you have to know this. You utilize articles and information, and you come up with reasonable content. That's what you do. So utilizing the articles and the information we have, there are reports saying that Tyson Fury made 3 times the amount as Dana White within this year. We're not talking about the whole career. But
that's good. That says a lot. That's good.
And that says a lot about the popularity of the sports as well, because Tyson Fury made that money as a boxer, bro. Boxing. So
yeah,
we just gotta keep it in context, bro. The UFC is doing great things, and I'm a huge UFC fan. But I keep it in context. The UFC is doing a great job at hawking down boxing, trying to get up there and get to the level of this sport, and eventually, their aspirations is to one day be bigger than boxing. But they're not there yet, and they're a ways away. And you have to understand that there's so many reasons why they're ways away, but it's not
internationally. Boxing's bigger internationally for sure.
Bigger, period. Alistair, even in the United States, it's not worldwide. It's way bigger than UFC. In the United States, it's way bigger than UFC.
South America, they have an edge in South America. The third world countries, Brazil, Portugal, all those countries have to know boxing because it's been around, like I said, way before, been established way before UFC. Just like how NBA had to go global, had to go overseas into the Olympics and stuff like that to get big as well. Michael Jordan as well. So same concept.
And it took years for that to happen, right?
Yeah, it took years, but not like 100 years.
So you're going to have to give the UFC time. Give them time. You're rushing things. See, you're one of these new age kids that you see things, but you're rushing things. You got to give the UFC time. It's not even fair, really, to compare them to a sport like boxing because of the lineage and how long boxing has been around. It's not even a fair comparison. That's why the context of this conversation was to show how UFC is doing a great job and hawking down this big monster that they call boxing. That's another combat sport that they're trying to catch. They're doing a great job at catching them. But to start speaking on the level of they're leaving them behind or they've ran away with it, that's when you're taking things overboard. And that's all I'm trying to bring you back down to the reality of. The UFC isn't running away with anything. They have not taken over anything. They're not there yet. But in 15, 20 years' time, if they keep moving the way they're moving, if they keep succeeding and hawking down boxing the way that they're hawking it down now, that's really my final thoughts on this discussion is I think that the UFC, they're looking good to overtake potentially the sport of boxing, especially with all of the politics situations with these fights. Now, down the road, 15, 20 years down the line, I could see it potentially rivaling or taking over. But as far as right now, no, sir, because the UFC still has some transgressions in itself. Just like I said, we can point fingers or not point fingers, but the facts of the matter is how many fans wanted that Ferguson and Khabib fight, and 5 times over we didn't get it. So things like that also scars the UFC. Yeah. How many times does Dana White do his foolishness and piss fans off? How many fans was pissed off with the way he treated Demetrius Johnson? So things like that will also harm the sport. You know,
just that. The only problem with that is, they took advantage of like okay, the 21st century, right? They're like kind of in the 21st century alone. I feel like they took an advantage and established themselves as being relevant, as in like everyday life of society or whatever, to people that are like have been alive, long enough to see the UFC, etc. Like that's been a part of their life, even though it hasn't been a part of like their father's life or their grandparents' life or stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like they're like the new kids in town, but you know they're hot right now. You know.
Yeah, and Dana White's doing a good job at establishing that company and making sure that it sustains and continues to grow. I think that mixed martial arts in general, the sport, and let's be fair, if we're going to throw in Golden Boy, Matchroom, PBC, Top Rank, then we got to be fair. And if we're talking about MMA, let's throw in Bellator and One in there with the UFC. And you combine them all, and MMA is making a good charge at the sport of boxing. It's not past it yet, but Bellator is doing extremely well. They're on the heels of the UFC, and the UFC is doing extremely well, and One is still around. And, you know, they're doing okay. And so when you look, even Pride Fighting is still on the list because I was just looking at this the other day. So those 4 organizations are still making money. They're still doing well, and they're all MMA. And so in the future, you know, if boxing keeps doing the things that they're doing and not giving us the fights, and, you know, Bob Arum and these guys delaying fights and all this duck nonsense goes on, then that gap will continue to decrease over a period of time. It will continue to decrease. And at some point, the UFC could rival or surpass boxing. And that's basically what this was all about. Thanks, Alistair, for coming through. I guess you was like to get this smoke today. You brought the opposition way left, but appreciate you coming through, fam. I appreciate everybody in the chat sitting here for today's conversation, boxing versus the UFC. And y'all know how I always end this thing. For the love of sports, let's talk about it. Peace.